Like with some staff members from Keller Elementary, and they are our host school this evening, so welcome to Sandy and to everyone who's here from Keller.
Push. Now can you hear me? I was kind of hoping it might. Yeah? Okay. All right. So I am Sandy Dennehy. This is my first year at Keller this year. Previously was at Kirk for 7 years. I've been in the district now for 13. And I am incredibly excited and humbled to have the opportunity to talk to the board about Keller, the staff and community, and their amazing dedication and commitment to kids. So I'm going to try and keep into my 15-minute time limit. So I will get started, but first I want to just say a little shout out to Keller here, and raise your hand and wave if you're from Keller, and thank you all for being here. Like I said, home of the Cobras and community of really amazing staff, students, and parents. So a little history about Helen Keller. Like I said, this is my first year, so actually doing this presentation was not only fun for me, it was actually very fun for me to be able to look back and look at the history of Keller, since I don't have a whole lot of historical perspective. But Keller was opened in the 1969-70 school year and was modernized in 2012 under the guidance of Tim Stonich. And Helen Keller, so far, the new Keller, has been recognized and received numerous accolades and awards for the functionability and beauty of the school. And if you haven't been out to see it, it's really quite an amazing school. It's bright, it's functional, the staff all see each other, we're in pods, it's beautiful. So if you get a chance to do that, please come out. But it's truly a stunning building and embraces collaboration, and was designed with student, staff, and the community as a whole in mind. So I have a little wooden plaque hanging from my door handle that my mom gave me many years ago, and it reads, "School is a building that has 4 walls and tomorrow inside." And I truly believe this, and we have a pretty amazing tomorrow inside our walls at Keller. We have around 352, however, I'm pretty sure somebody new shows up every single day right now, right? We have about 352 kids. We have a very diverse population of learners, which I really believe is the beauty of Keller. And we have nearly 35% free and reduced lunch. We have around 20% special education. And we have nearly 30 kids almost probably more, around 25 kids in our learning centers, which are then integrated into the general ed population. And we have about 15% ELL. We have 55 certificated and classified staff, nearly 50% with their master's degree or higher, and actually we have 3 upstairs doing their master's right now, so they couldn't be here with us today. And we have a very highly involved PTA that has increased membership by 12% from last year, so we have 169 PTA members this year. And again, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the parents in the room and for providing the refreshments and whatnot in the back too, and for helping decorate this beautiful room. So we all know that successful schools share a common mission and vision. In crafting our mission and vision in August this year, we examined our beliefs about learning and spent time reviewing Dufour's work and discussing our purpose. As a side note, we actually had 10 teachers this summer attend the PLC conference in August. We actually have a rather small general ed certificated staff, and to have 10 people was pretty amazing. We had 1 person from each grade level, and special ed was also included in that. So we thought deeply about about the what, which was the vision, and the why, our mission, and the how, our beliefs, that we want our school to provide for all kids. We all agreed our vision and mission our vision aligned directly with the vision of the district, that every student is future ready, and themes really became apparent when looking at our why, what our mission was. So we went through many activities where we really actually said, what is it that we want our kids and why our kids are here at Keller, why we do what we're doing, and what we want them to leave with. So just kind of took this through a little bit of that process. So our mission ended up with the mission of Helen Keller is to collaborate with the community to empower students to reach rigorous yet attainable academic and social goals. And as you can see in our mission statement, community collaboration is important. And as the presentation continues, you will definitely see why that's so important to us. We then had to really think about the how. So we had the why and the what, and we needed the how, and believed that the work that Keller had done previously around GRIP, growth, respect, integrity, and perseverance, embraced the how and our values. So you guys have all seen the MSP results, so I'm going to briefly go through a little bit of it, but really focus on then what. So just to highlight a few things about our MSP data, we had 94% at standard in third grade, which was up 10% from the previous year. We had 86.3 at standard in fourth grade, which was up 8% from 2011-12. And again, I really like to look at that cohort data too. So how were the kids from third grade to fourth grade? And there was an increase by 2%, and fourth and fifth remained the same with no decline. For writing, there's a gradual increase in our writing over the last 3 years. We focused on content, organization, and style previously. All grade levels integrated writing into other content areas. And with the new standards and proficiency scales and curriculum, this year we've made an intentional effort to score together and analyze the data and again, do the now what. So we've got some pretty amazing programs at Keller, and again, just the staff and dedication of the staff around this. So supporting our strong readers and writers, we have Safety Net for K-5, where we actually are supporting kids from all of those grade levels by either pushing in and supporting the teachers and the kids at the same time, or actually pulling them out for some more of the intensive and strategic interventions, but then again, ensuring all kids are exposed to at-grade level text, which has been really exciting this year. Win time, which is what I need time, which was new to me this year, I must say, and I love it. And I don't know if it's a Keller thing, but it's really an amazing model where we use classified staff and entire grade levels collaborate to create smaller groups so kids are receiving the interventions in areas that they specifically need it based on formative assessments throughout the year. So those what I need times could be math one week for one student and reading the next week for another student, depending on where they are needing that intervention at the time. And then obviously implementing the Wonders curriculum. Many grade levels, particularly in primary, use the Walk to Read model and focus with focused small groups utilizing classified staff and parent volunteers. But again, all kids are being exposed to at-grade level text. And then we have our resource room, which we also are this year pushing in and pulling out in grades K-5 to support kids. And then the really exciting thing is this year we, in February 6th, we actually started the Kindergarten Intensive Safety Net Program, KISN, as you'll hear it referred to, which, again, early intervention obviously proves to be effective. And we ended up changing some kids from morning to afternoon, but so that they could have that all-day experience. So they go to KISN in the morning, and then they go to their general ed kindergarten class in the afternoon. So, and we use our KISSN teacher also to provide some additional safety net to our ADK kids. And the really exciting part about this is that we've only been doing it for, 3 or 4 weeks now, and already, as we're progress monitoring, we've seen leaps and bounds with some of our kids. So it's a really exciting program that we're looking forward to continuing. In math, for our math MSP scores, we've seen significant growth in 4th and 5th grade, up 16% and 14% from 2011-12. And then cohort data, we've seen fourth graders increased 14% from 11-12 to 12-13. So again, now the what is how we are supporting our mathematicians. We actually have safety net in 3rd through 5th grade now. So we were able to receive some Better Schools funding this year and now have 1.9 FTE in safety net. So we're utilizing her in some of our intermediate math classes, which has been really great. So the kids are actually pulled out or pushed, or again, she's pushing in and supporting inside the classroom. But the pulling out is again, they're getting the core instruction in class and then pulled out for some intervention time. Win time we use the same way. We're using IXL in class and at home. And the PTA funded this last semester Xeno Math after-school clubs, which we hadn't previously had at Keller, so that's exciting. We had 7 in primary and 12 in intermediate sign up for this first session. So, excuse me. Science, we're up, seen significant growth, up 11% from 11-12, and nearly 20% over the last 2 years. We have a great deal of emphasis has been put on state standards, and we also share some of our kids for science, so we have more intentional, larger blocks of science instruction. So meaning they go to one teacher for science, which has been really great. The intentional instruction on process, like writing the procedures and the conclusions, has also been a big factor in that. And outdoor education. So this is the longest outdoor education, by the way, I've ever seen. I'm really excited for it. But we go to Camp Waskowitz for 4 nights and 5 days, which is kind of the culminating science experience. It's an entire week of camp and outdoors, which is amazing, and it's an incredible opportunity for our 5th graders. They teach students hands-on science in the natural setting, including water ecology, animal tracks, pelts and skulls, plant ID, and then actually tour the Cedar River shed. So exciting science culmination for our 5th graders. Oop, I got ahead of myself. So this year we really wanted to, with the new PGE system, and we wanted to look at how we could combine or nest our PGE and SIP plans, which made a lot of sense because as we were unpacking the data and we looked at the grade level areas of growth, we then determined, which content area in each of those grade levels or within those PLCs were the ones that we really wanted to focus on, and then those became the student growth goals, so that overarching 8.1 student growth goal. And then comprehensive teachers were able to nest that into the 6.1 and the 3.1. So every grade level creates SMART goals in each content area, and we continuously look back at those goals throughout the year during our LEAP days. And not just on our PGE days, which is nice too because they're the same, essentially. So in order to address the academic success of all our students and utilize the support the programs mentioned in the previous slides, all our certificated staff members are part of at least one professional learning community, which could be their grade level, which is also often then their PGE team. And as I said before, we had 10 staff members attend the PLC conference, And the Keller staff actually does an amazing job of working collaboratively with one another. It's second nature to them. So we just began looking at using this process of data analysis, SMART goals, instructional strategies, and results indicators, and really focusing on the step 4, instructional strategies, which then ties in the questions 3 and 4 of the critical questions. How will we respond when they don't learn, and how will we respond when they already know it? So both of those questions really allow us to look at our programming and also just what's individual kids within our classes. So we really wanted to focus more on cause data rather than the effect data, so strategies and not activities. So looking at if kids aren't learning or if they already know it, what strategies are we going to use to engage them in learning as we continue. So there are a number of things that make Keller stand out, I believe, from other schools. And this is my 4th or 5th school within our district, and I'm excited to show you what really I believe makes Keller such a unique place to work and to be a part of. Starting with the staff and the incredible dedication they have to supporting not only our students in core academic areas, but also supporting the development of well-rounded citizens, and that is the truth. We have our PE teacher who has had coaches in from Kirkland Lacrosse and to show kids the fundamentals in lacrosse, having them set goals for pacers. Music teacher who prepares each grade level and provides an evening concert for families to attend. Our librarian, Sherry, who, along with 4 other teachers, Marcia, Amy, Renee, and Jen, donated their lunches 3 days a week to prepare 4th and 5th graders for the Global Reading Challenge, which Keller has won a number of times, and it was a narrow defeat by Dickinson. Dickinson beat us out this year, I know. But note the picture of the dashing pink unicorns there. They were very proud. So, and then our counselor, Sue Chin, who teaches kids about filling each other's buckets and eats lunch with a chosen bucket filling group of students each Friday. Our 5th grade teacher, Elizabeth Kelly, and Amanda, and our kindergarten teacher, Karen, who actually are all sitting right there, meet with Keller Earth Heroes to discuss how to educate our students and staff about taking care of the world around us. And we have pride assemblies, which I just think is so awesome. We have an opportunity for the entire school to come together nearly once a month to acknowledge those receiving Pride Awards for academic achievement or life skills. And our PE teacher, in conjunction with one of our 3rd grade teachers, Jen, who gets photos from teachers and puts together a slideshow for the activities in and out of the school for that month. This is truly, and I left out so many things, but again, I'm trying to keep myself down to my 15 minutes, and I know I'm running past. So this is just a snapshot, though, of the programs provided, and we have a wide variety of after-school enrichment programs also that benefit our students as the whole child, keeping in mind the health, fitness, leadership, and academic enrichment. So something I just wanted to highlight really quickly, too, is our backpack program. The other thing that I think, well, one of the other things that I think about when I think about how Keller stands out is how we embrace community through activities and charitable acts. And this was something that I am still in awe of each day. We send home 18 backpacks we send home 18 backpacks each week, feeding 18 families with 45 kids within our school. These backpacks don't go out to other schools or other communities. These are our Keller kids. Each pack contains 2 breakfasts, lunch, snacks, serving of fruit, vegetables. We identify teachers either through self-identification or through teachers or the counselor letting us know that this is a family in need. And It's funded by donations from families. There's a food drive twice a year at QFC, but then it's also just coming to family reading night, bringing some cans of food. We have food drops within the school, and as you see, there's a cabinet full of food, and that's one of 5 cabinets that are full of food. And they go home when kids or families are in need, and it's a really, really amazing and special program that I think Keller has and proud of. So the other thing that makes Keller unique is our PTA, and we've got some parents out there, but our PTA is so generous and truly allows many of these evening events to be free of charge or very minimal in charge, and it's really to bring the community together. They see the value in community, they see the value in family, and these are fun evening events. We have family reading nights once a month. We've had family movie nights, Skate King, talent show. We just had the talent show, and it was amazing. I loved it. But parents versus staff games. But again, just embracing our parent community and embracing the community as a whole. Our PTA sees the value in it and acts on it, and it's pretty impressive. They also provide after-school enrichment, jazzercise, drama, mad science, IXL, Smart with our Zeno now for the first time, homework club, where 3 of our teachers, again, do homework club with kids who are identified by teachers as struggling and not being able to get their homework done at home at night. And then provide each grade level with a grant, and a grant to use for enrichment so that kids can go to field trips and whatnot free of charge. So I really do like that, don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened. I am, again, humbled to be here today. Thank you for allowing me to talk about Keller, to brag about the amazing work that the students, parents, and staff are doing here. We are proud of our school community and where we're headed, and I feel honored, honestly, to work with the dedicated and caring staff at Keller. And I tell them that as much as I can, because I have never seen anything like this. This staff who just volunteers hour upon hour to make sure that kids are getting what they need. On behalf of Keller Elementary, I would like to say thank you to the school board for supporting our goals and academic growth for each student of the Lake Washington School District, and for all you've done for us and our community. Thank you. Where's the wave?
Thank you very much. I have to say your Facebook page is, PTA's Facebook page is fabulous. No, not yours. Your PTA's, though, it really does a great job of highlighting the activities that are going on at Keller, and there's just something exciting every time I turn around for families and kids, in addition to what you're doing already during the school day. So I'm having fun following it. So
thank you. It's great. Thanks so much, Sandy, and thanks everyone from Keller for being here tonight. We've got a couple more presentations, actually recognition to do, so hopefully you can stick around for just a few more minutes for the recognition pieces. So first up.
And please feel free if you need to go anytime along the way. Just don't, we love having an audience, but we also understand you have kids to see tomorrow. So
absolutely.
I'm going to do the intro here because these are two of my very favorite people in the world from Assistance League of the East Side, which I am very privileged to be a member of, and an organization that they'll tell you about and the things they do, but does great work for our community, and all of our elementary and middle schools in Lake Washington are familiar with one of their programs. But it's Carolyn Vacher, who works with our Operation School Bell program, and Leslie Adams, who is our president of Assistance League. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you. We're good. a few technical difficulties.
There they go.
Okay. Again, I'm Leslie Adams, current president of Assistance League of the East Side. We're a part of a national philanthropic organization with 122 chapters in 26 states and 26,000 members. We were founded, the organization, in 1894, and you can read that about our programs and that we do 2.9 million service hours, so we are a large group. Our East Side chapter, which we are Assistance League of the East Side, was started as an auxiliary in 1989, and we became the 98th chapter of Assistance League in 1997. And in 1998, this building opened, and they welcomed us to hold our meetings here. So we've held our meetings in this room since 1998. So we feel like we have a really close tie with Lake Washington School District. Our mission statement, you can read, we're an all-volunteer nonprofit organization, and we work hard to bring good things to the east side of Seattle. Our vision statement is to positively impact our community one individual at a time. We have 5 programs, and our Operation School Bell program is our signature program, and Carolyn will go into detail about that. So I'll go on with our other programs, the Assault Survivor Kits, and I'm just going to give you a mini detail on each one. It helps to restore dignity to survivors of sexual assault by providing essential toiletry items and a sweatsuit, because in an assault situation, when you go to the emergency room, many times clothing is, the police would like to keep the clothing to use for evidence. So our kits allow for people to feel more comfortable to give up their clothes so people can be prosecuted for assault. Our Starting Over support is a program that provides baskets of basic household items for people who are fleeing domestic violence and have gone to safe shelter. So when they come into the shelter, there's a basket of everything they need, from towels, shampoo, toothbrush, laundry detergent, pen and paper, so that they feel welcomed and have something to get up the next day, have something, to use when they've probably run with just their handbag and their children. We also have our outreach program, which I skipped over, which is an interesting program that provides emergency support for other agencies who have a one-time need, that all of a sudden, they don't have milk to serve the homeless youth, or just a one-time type thing, and that's our outreach. We have a brand new program. Assault Survivor Kits is one of our it's really important, but one of our newest is called Help for Homeless, and this program will be collaborating. We've just gotten going, and we're going to collaborate with other agencies to help homeless people on the east side. Did I hit all of them? All right. Well, anyway, that kind of gives you an idea, and just really quick, so you can kind of feel what we accomplished within a year. Our members, we have 141 members, and last year they donated 18,200 hours of service to support our programs. 2,896 students received clothing through our Operation School Bell program. This is a really hard statistic. That's exciting and fun because the kids are so excited, but 950 survivors in 26 hospitals across Washington received the Assault Survivor Kits. 600 women and children were touched through our Starting Over support program, the people fleeing domestic violence. 400 people were touched through our Assistance League outreach program. And then again, our homeless program is just getting started, so we'll have facts for that as we go forward. We do all of this with a budget of around $367,000, which we raise ourselves, all volunteers, and we raise it through community organizations like Rotary, and these, sometimes donate to us. We have a large grant writing program that Carolyn is our chairman for, and grant writing and personal donations bring in about 1/3 of our funds, and then we hold special events. Perhaps some of you have been to our Celebrations Holiday Home Tour, which is a tour of decorated homes during December. And coming up this spring, we're going to have a wonderful luncheon that will showcase decorated tables, and it'll be a fundraiser for us. So if anybody, you should put it on your calendar. April 25th will be our luncheon. Are there any questions about any of the programs that I talked about? Well, I'd like to turn it over to Carolyn so she can tell you about Operation School Bell, which is our signature program, which has an impact the most on Lake Washington School District students.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. So first of all, I want to say that I don't exactly know how many years, have been dealing with the counselors in the Lake Washington School District, and they are wonderful. They are energetic. They are committed to helping us find the kids for the programs, for our program, and we could not do it without them. And we try to thank them every way we know how possible. So they are wonderful. We actually serve kids in 3 school districts. We do the Bellevue School District, the North Shore, and the Lake Washington School District. We do 48 schools in those 3 districts. We do all the elementaries and middle schools in Lake Washington. We do 5 elementaries and 3 middle schools in Bellevue. We do 1 junior high and 3 elementaries in North Shore. So, as Leslie said, last year, in the school year, we served 2,854 students in those 3 school districts. Currently, this fall, we have served 2,490 students. Out of those 2,490, 1,518 were Lake Washington School District students. Elementary, we served 983. Middle school, we served 535. At Keller, we served 45 kids, and then we have 3 shopping events coming up next week where we're going to serve 10 more, just from Keller. So, and our shopping events next week will serve a total of another 550 students, another 376 from the Lake Washington School District, which will bring us to a total of about 3,040. Highest ever. Highest ever. Highest ever that we've done. So the program costs for, just for Lake Washington School District students, $163,000. We give the elementary students $100 and the middle school students $120,000. And since 1992, you can see we've served over 34,000 kids. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, but I tell you what, it's a great program. The kids are so excited when they come to Fred Meyer. Our partner is Fred Meyer. I'm sorry, I should have backed up and say we go to 3 Fred Meyers, Bellevue, Redmond, and Kirkland. And they welcome us in their stores. We spend a lot of money there on these kids. The kids come in, they get to pick out the clothes that they want, that fits their personality, that fits their needs. You know, if every little 2nd grade girl wants to get a pink sparkly kitty shirt, that's what they do. And, you know, and then you've got the junior high kid or the middle school kid that's coming in to get his, pair of Nikes, a sweatshirt, and maybe a hat. And that's what makes him feel good. And so that, for us, we hope that it, increases or enhances their school experience while they're there, if they're dressed in the clothes that they feel good in. So, any questions? Yes?
Yeah, do you offer some sort of assistance to high school kids where they're likely a little bit more self-sufficient, but
We offer...
help them find part-time jobs, etc.?
We do not do anything like that. The assistance that we offer high school kids is on an emergency basis only. So if I have, a counselor will contact me about a certain student that might be in a situation, and we would help in that situation. But unfortunately, no, we don't.
And the funds that we work so hard to raise really only covers about 50% of the need in the elementary school and the middle school level. And we're hoping in the high school level that perhaps they have an opportunity for a part-time job or can help, help themselves. But with only covering the 50%, in the younger grades, it's hard for us to jump up. We did, though, last year, clothe
38 homeless high school teens in the 3 school districts. And we will be doing some more this next week, actually, also, that are identified by the people in the district. So we personally do not pick any of the kids. We rely totally on the counselors in the districts and in North Shore on the nurses. I mean, we could not pick them. I'd just give away the house, so, But the counselors are so familiar with their students, and they're familiar with the families and what issues there may be and who needs our services, and so that's why we totally rely on their judgment.
Do we have any, I can't remember if we have any more. There we go.
That's how we raise money.
Yes. So, any other questions?
Have you considered taking young people and teaching them how to rise and shop at second-hand stores?
I don't know that we've ever discussed that or tried that. It's true. It's true. The one thing about our program is when they go into Fred Meyer, it is probably the only time some of these kids get to go buy new clothing. Or, they don't get hand-me-downs. So it's kind of a fun treat for them.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you. Thank you. And there is much more information on the website, and you can just Google Assistance League of the East Side or ask me. And everybody's looking forward to probably for every member of Assistance League, attending one of the shopping events and seeing the smiles on kids' faces is probably one of the best things any of us do in a year. And we have a lot of our counselors attend those as well. So on their own time, they come in and are there with their students and talk with families. So it's just a very heartwarming event. So thank you both for coming this evening. We appreciate seeing you very much. Proclamation time.
Tonight, our final piece of recognition, and we absolutely know people need to go, so please go and no worries at all. We've got, the board has a proclamation. It's Classified School Employees Week, March 10th through the 14th. So we'd like to recognize all of our wonderful classified school employees.
I'd like to read the proclamation from the board for our classified staff. As we all know, they are involved in nearly every aspect of education, including maintaining school buildings and grounds, providing secretarial and clerical assistance, preparing and serving meals, providing safe transportation, keeping school facilities clean and orderly, assisting in the classroom, providing a secure and healthy environment, and many other specialized services, too many to list here tonight. And whereas classified school employees are instrumental in fulfilling the state's paramount duty to educate all children, and whereas by supporting the learning environment, classified school employees are crucial partners with teachers, parents, administrators, and school boards in public schools, and whereas these dedicated individuals deserve recognition and thanks for the outstanding work they are doing for the children enrolled in the Lake Washington School District. And whereas there are 1,057 classified school employees working with and helping children in Lake Washington School District every day, therefore, the Board of Directors do hereby proclaim March 10 through 14, 2014, as Classified School Employee Week in the Lake Washington School District. I encourage everybody to, when they see a secretary or an IA or a paraeducator, their bus driver, the custodian, to say thank you, because our schools, without them, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So.
Okay, thank you. We are, do you want to take a little 5-minute break between?
We'll take a short break,
okay.
yes.
So thank you all who are here. We're going to take a little break and then reconvene for public comment.
And you're welcome to stay if you would like. Next item on our agenda is our public comment time. So I will go over the guidelines that the board requests that our speakers adhere to. We're going to ask you to come to speak at the center podium. You have 3 minutes maximum time in which to speak. We ask that you tell us your name and general attendance area location that you reside within. And we do have a stoplight to the left here. Yellow lets you know you've got about a minute left. So we're going to ask you to wind down your comments at that point, and when it hits red, we will ask you to please be finished. So we have a few people here this evening to speak, so I will call you up probably by first names. That way I don't totally mess up last names. I don't see anybody, any multiple first names here, so we're in good shape. So let's start first. Rick, if you would come forward and right to here, please.
Thank you. I'm Rick Whitney. I live in Kirkland. A couple weeks ago, my wife came home from Kirkland Junior High School, where she's a substitute admin person. She has been for many years, and she showed me a memo that staff had gotten from Tracy Pierce that was talking about the bond issue. And part of this memo says we will also work to identify why a minority of people did not support the bond, as it will help to inform our next steps. So that's why I'm here. I thought I'd give you my perspective on it. And just also, I should let you know, my dad was an elementary principal my entire life. He was a career educator, so I'm a very pro-school person. And so it was very conflicting for me when, for the first time in my life, I voted against the school measure. I voted against the bond. I hated to do it, but I just, well, I'll tell you what in talking it over with other friends after the vote, I was surprised to find how many other people who had never voted against a bond issue had the same feelings. The general concern was that people like us voted against the bond because we felt like the cost of the new schools is excessive, and the ever-increasing additional tax burden that is being put on us is reaching the point of being unacceptable. And I really feel strongly that you'll get support for a revised bond proposal if it reflects a fundamental change in the emphasis on how our tax dollars are being spent. I wanted to reference Lake Washington Citizens Levy Committee. Their statement talks about Lake Washington, why do we get such support for the schools? Because the school district has a consistent record of accountability, using local tax dollars exactly as portrayed and voted upon within budget to achieve its comprehensive plan for sustaining high-performing public schools. That's the statement. It's a great statement, but there's one key thing missing in that, and that is to strive. I think the school district needs to strive for cost efficiencies to deliver high-performing schools at the lowest possible cost to the taxpayers. That's what I think is missing, and I think that's the disconnect that caused you to lose this bond vote. And if you just can change that fundamental element, I think you won't get people like me voting against you again. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Very much appreciate your comments. Mike?
Hello, Nick Rummage here. My girls went through Peter Kirk Elementary, Lake Washington High School. Peter Kirk was a 13-year endeavor for us because the two of them are 7 years apart. I was a chair of the 1-2 Not 3 committee. I picked up one of our signs. It was disposed of in a ditch during the campaign, and I'm bringing along as far as, who we are and how we came about. Really, a bunch of business owners came together, quite concerned about the cost of schools. Again, we weren't against 1 and 2, but 3, we had a great deal of concern. My background is I was on the City of Kirkland's Growth Management Planning Commission back in the early 90s, put together a comprehensive plan, the capital facilities plan. at that time. I followed school constructions from that time forward, especially as a real estate developer and builder. Dear friend of mine from college built Monroe High School, also is building Sammamish High School currently, and gleaning from him and the superintendent of public instruction's office, are we looking at actual school construction costs? Girls, of course, went up to Lake Washington High School, and after seeing $88 million plus another $6 million spent on that school, when Doug spent only $22 million building Monroe High School, causes a great deal of concern about school construction expenditures. So realizing that one of the schools that my girls went to, Peter Kirk Elementary, was slated for a tear down, again, really generated a lot of effort on our part, as much as that school, Peter Kirk Elementary, could last not decades more, but centuries more. With proper maintenance and really modest repairs, that's a very long-lasting school. So this whole structure of tearing down schools and rebuilding them, frankly, has got to end. We must move forward to what I like to formulate is what we call an affordable schools group. Through the affordable schools group, I want to bring together builders, teachers, architects, and bring forward a better proposal for the school district to really readdress our children's needs at a level that would be affordable. And then the next school bond, I hope to be on the pro side. Thank you very much for your time, Jackie, and the rest of your board members.
Thank you, Mike. Dave?
Evening, thank you. My name is Dave Griffin. I live in North Kirkland, and we've got two wonderful new elementary schools, John Muir and Robert Frost, which are very interesting structures. And I am here tonight. My mom was a professor at the University of Alaska, a long-time tenured professor. And so I have education in my blood, and I'm here to talk about what I would hope would be the focus of Lake Washington School District. I recently talked to a young woman, a student, about what her priorities were and what she felt was important for her education here in Lake Washington. And she focused on curriculum, teachers, and parent involvement. And I asked, where do buildings come in? And that was something that she was not thinking very much about when it came to her educational goals and what she would need to succeed in life. And it was good to see that Prop 1 and Prop 2 passed, because those seem to support those same goals. I would hope that we could come up with a plan for construction that would be more fitting to our community, and I hope that we would look at the economic impact that we're having on families in our community and the family time that's involved there. And when we're literally taking hundreds of dollars out of people's pockets for schools, I think we need to spend those dollars very, very carefully and make sure that those structures are used fully and that we get really good use out of them. I've talked to many neighbors who do not plan on tearing down their houses when they hit 40 or 41 years old, but they look at maintaining and getting full value and use out of those structures for as long as we feasibly can. I'm very sorry to see the pools are closing in Lake Washington. We've got Olympic athletes, and it's sorry to see that we can't get a firm commitment that would be included with the construction spending. So thank you for your time, and I really hope that we can solve this. Thank you.
Thank you. And Stephen?
Hi, Steve Swedenberg. I was reading the Joint Legislative Audit, and the evidence shows that the huge amount of building cost increase due to some of the supposed energy savings and environmental improvements really aren't panning out. Over-designing replacement schools seems to add 25 to 50% of the cost of the new buildings, which seems pretty high to me. I was curious, reading through the report, why state funding percentages from 85 to 2007 have dropped from 61% on an average to around 15%. That's pretty much the limit of my questions. I'd be curious to get a response to those. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. If you could leave your contact information so we can have somebody get an answer to you on your questions. Jean? Is it Jean or Jeannie?
Depends on how old I am.
Oh, okay. Your young person
When I
is?
was younger, it was Jeannie, and now that I'm a grown-up, it's Jean.
Okay, well, you could be either one tonight.
Thank you, thank you.
You might want to just pull that down for you.
And my
so-
therapist said that when I stopped using the word grown-up and used the word adult, I would be coming up to that.
Oh.
Okay, there were two things I came to speak about, and I'm going to say a slight thing about a third one. First is, I have brought materials to schools as well as to this meeting around voter registration. It is very important. I think there's a good time for us all to think about that, how important it is for everyone to be registered to vote and to be informed and to be involved and to vote. And there's an opportunity in the schools, of course, which is to do that. You probably know that 18-year-olds have to be 18 by November 4th this year. They don't have to be 18 when they register. And you think about the age of most kids in school and what age they are when they enter. Most of the people who are graduating from high school are old enough to be registered. Thank you. And I put the materials on the back table. And I've talked to several staff people and haven't gotten anywhere with it, so I'm coming here. Other thing is, I live in Kirkland. Excuse me, I didn't say that. The city of Kirkland, I've been volunteering with the Public Works Department there on something called the StyroFest, which is an opportunity to bring to the Kirkland Public Works Department and deposit there in things like styrofoam and other plastics that waste management doesn't recycle for you. So they go into landfills, into the ocean. And as you know, styrofoam breaks down into little pieces and birds and fish eat it, okay? Now I have enough time to say about the bond, which I really wasn't here to talk about tonight. I would ask you, what is your plan to educate the populace around the reason for the bond? I voted for it, and I will vote for it again. You may want to adjust it or do something, but you have some education to do. I've heard a lot of people talk about it, and I'm very surprised to hear what I'm hearing. My own property tax rate, I live in Kirkland in a very nice property. The rate went down between 2013 and 2014. The actual amount of money I pay went up because the value of my property went up, but the tax rate went down. And people need to be educated about what those numbers are on those little pieces of paper they get. And last thing, because the only income tax I pay is a federal tax, I encourage you to also look at that and look. The higher my income, the lower the percent of taxes I pay. And that has been going on since 1981. I have a chart. And the reason we don't have enough money from the state is we're not paying any blankety-blank taxes enough. Tax me, please.
Would you mind, if you have some ideas, because education is a piece that I know we will probably discuss later, but that is a piece of something that we need to be doing better. If you have some concrete ideas, please share with us. You can email me. I'd love to.
And truth, you know, not to hide anything, I was a member of the Salem, Oregon School Board at one time, and we used to have community meetings, lots of education, and when a levy or a bond went down, we tweaked it, educated, and took it back.
Okay. Great. If you have some good ideas, I appreciate them. Thank you. Barbara?
Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Martin. I'm in the East Lake Learning Community, and thank you for having me tonight and the opportunity to speak to you. Tonight, however, I have my Washington State PTA hat on. I'm the vice president. And I want to thank you because this is obviously my district, and I want to thank you for the hard work on the bond and levy. I know from being PTA council what that is, and it was disappointing, but I had the opportunity to go down on behalf of Washington State PTA and testify on House Bill 2441 on simple majority for school bonds on February 13th. And as you may or may not know, Washington State PTA was instrumental in the fight for simple majority for levies. So we're not going to give up on the other piece of it, and so that's why we were down there. But it was interesting because when I spoke with the woman from, the lobbyist from WASDA and another lobbyist, and I forgot about the part when you testify that they actually get to ask you questions. I forgot. But you will be, I think you'll be proud of me, because the question was, why do you think people are, there's getting more and more opposition to bonds? And I said, because they're having to pay so much more and more for levies. Let's remember what levies were for. And let's not forget now that levies are paying for a lot of basic education that you should be fully funding. And got lots of nods and smiles from some of the committee members, but we went and said our piece, and we'll be watching for what happens with it in the future, but we want you to know that Washington State PTA will be there fighting the good fight for it, because it's important. If we're going to have reduced class sizes and fully funding basic education, we need that capital component. So the other reason I'm here is a piece of good news. One of our very own is moving up in the PTA ranks. Our very own Jane Dulski, our Lake Washington Council president, was nominated for Region 2 Director, and Washington State PTA is divided into 13 regions, and our Region 2 is Bellevue, Issaquah, Lake Washington, Mercer Island, Snoqualmie Valley, and Riverview. So she will be overseeing with a team the local units in that area. And she's been appointed interim because she was running unopposed, but I'm going to divulge a little secret. And I was in the office today, and the ballots were in, and we had a quorum for Region 2. So she doesn't know it yet, but she's actually the incoming Region 2 Director now, and I wanted to be the first to tell everybody. So with that, thank you all for all the work you do. It's very much appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you, Barbara, and congratulations, Jane. A very big job. Region 2 is a big region. Jane. There she is.
Hello, my name is Jane Wither. I'm a resident of Redmond, and I have 2 children in the Lake Washington School District. My eldest daughter is at Stella Scola Middle School, and my youngest is finishing 5th grade at Norman Rockwell. I'm an active volunteer, and I'm also a Rockwell PTA board member. I'm here tonight to speak specifically about the future bond measures, to offer some opinion and a few suggestions to consider as you build out a new plan. I was a supporter of the recent bond measure. As a Rockwell family, we've witnessed firsthand the impact of overcrowding. We also understand what a positive impact school modernization can have on our students and the community at large, especially with the Stella Scola and Rose Hill Middle School modernization project. Today you're wrestling with a number of important questions as it relates to the next steps on the bond measure, and let me start by sharing my opinion on a few of the big questions. One is, don't wait. Act now. Resist the urge, though, to go on the April ballot. Decide now to present in November and increase the odds of a higher voter turnout. Also, use this time wisely to regroup and to reframe the message and communicate broadly. I would encourage you also to consider modifying the bond measure, lowering the total dollar amount to address the most urgent needs now. Now I'd like to move on to a few suggestions on your messaging and communication strategy moving forward. First and foremost, consider reframing the conversation. It's important to recognize that the general public, the press, PTA, and citizens groups rely on Lake Washington School District to provide information about the bond measure in a format that's compelling and easy to understand. Number of documents, if you go to the levy committee, for example, they reference almost exclusively Lake Washington School District documents in PDF form. I would encourage you to scrutinize how you've communicated the last two bond measures initiatives and focus on reaching a broader audience by making the information easier to find, and ensure that you address the questions and concerns of the broader community in a language that's meaningful to them. Invigorate the language you're using in the materials you present to the public. For example, differentiate between expenditures that are related to modernization and those that are related to capacity to be clear where the need is greatest in the short term and what can be delayed but not ignored. Be explicit that new schools will relieve overcrowding in existing schools and accommodate additional enrollment growth projections. And then next, build a comprehensive communications plan. I'd suggest even creating an ad hoc committee of community members for perhaps 30 to 45 days to help you review your materials that you have and what you're planning to put out. And then communicate aggressively, consistently, repeatedly about what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Angie? Is Angie here? Or April? I think you're right. I think they thought they had to sign in. Okay. That's all I have signed up. Did anyone in the audience that didn't have an opportunity to sign up wish to speak?
I apologize for not signing up previously. My name is Larry Happ. I live in the Dickinson attendance area. Just a few thoughts that occurred to me while some of the other folks presented their very helpful suggestions, I believe. One thing that occurs to me is that perhaps you would want to avoid adopting as a slogan or a carrying call this idea that the minority is in effect ruling the majority. What I'm getting at is let's not play with numbers in a way that we delude ourselves. When 30+% of the registered available voters simply vote by staying home, you see that would skew the overall percentages considerably. Now, I've experienced, having been in education for decades myself, that there was always the, for lack of a better word, complaint over the 60-40 rule. And one of the young ladies spoke to that this evening. So, like I say, please let's not, delude ourselves here that the minority is actually ruling the majority because they don't come up to 60% on their own. Okay? Of all of those people that stay home, like I say, our complaint always was that you vote no by simply staying home. Okay? So let's not delude ourselves with that. Let's address that we get everybody out, no matter what their opinion may be, and like the last lady that just spoke, make sure that the communication does get out there and that people share their ideas, pro or con, and that they truly value the education and, frankly, the economic benefits that accrue to all of us from having a good system. We're all kind of in the same boat, so if it's not your ox that's being gored at the present time, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't get out and help out. Maybe next time you're going to be the school that has 10 portables and really needs another 10 more.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, then I'm going to close the public comment, and we'll move on to the next item of business, which is our consent agenda. We'll entertain a motion to approve our consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Tracy, would you poll the board, please?
Chris?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Siri?
And our donations?
Okay, donations tonight, tab 10. We are thankful that we've got $79,609 of donations tonight, so a substantial amount of donations. We've got a $3,114 donation from the Lake Washington Schools Foundation to Lakeview Elementary to provide stipends for Reaching for Success program, a $24,329 donation from the Louisa May Alcott Elementary PTSA to Alcott Elementary to purchase electric pencil sharpeners, curtains for their gym, additions to the portable stage in the gymnasium, and a rock wall. A $7,070 donation from the Rachel Carson PTSA to Carson Elementary to provide stipends for choir and music, 5th grade outdoor education, a cup stacking program, and to support the science curriculum. $4,026 from Albert Einstein's PTSA to Einstein Elementary to provide stipends for after-school activities. $11,115 from the Ben Franklin PTSA to Franklin Elementary to purchase instructional materials, including IXL Learning, Dreambox Learning, Wonders Reading, as well as recess equipment, and to support staff development. $5,000 from the Wilder Elementary PTSA to Wilder Elementary to purchase an electronic reader board. $2,150 from Evergreen Middle School's PTSA to Evergreen Middle School to support their Emergency Preparedness Committee. $2,088 from the Rose Hill Middle School PTSA to Rose Hill Middle School to provide a stipend for Lego Club. $4,976 from the Juanita High School PTSA to Juanita High School to purchase a portable PA system and to support counseling, English, PE, health, science, social studies, special education, and world languages departments, and also to fund anti-bullying training for staff and students. And finally, a $15,739 donation from the Redmond High School PTSA to Redmond High School to purchase a number of things, including a laser cutter, a 3D printer, two-way radios, chemistry hot plates, raised bed planners for their transition room, and to support the street law program. So all total tonight, we've got $79,609 worth of donations, and we're very appreciative.
Yes, and thank you very much. The ongoing support is just always amazing, and every month is just another batch of wonderful things that our schools are benefiting from. Our next is our non-consent agenda, and you're going to do SUP's report first?
I would like to do SUP's report. We have a pretty extended superintendent's report this evening with two embedded presentations, all in the context of bond information. So I'd like to go ahead and get started with that. A couple people have referenced tonight an email that I have sent to staff and a subsequent letter that I sent out to parents in our Connections e-newsletter. And this was right after we had the results back from the levies and the bond. And I want to share that I was surprised that then the Redmond and Kirkland reporters picked up the Connections e-newsletter to parents and ran it as a guest editorial last week. And so the purpose of me sending that out was thinking about a communication to parents, and what I wanted to do was share the results of the levies, that both of our levies passed at around 65% approval. They both needed 50% approval to pass. I wanted to thank our parents for their support. I wanted to let them know that the bond results were, the final results were 57.79% approval, which was just shy of the 60% needed to pass. In that communication, I did reiterate that it's part of our board's set legislative platform that we set, the board set this year, to continue to work at a legislative level around the 50% approval need for bonds, and that's also part of WASDA's larger ledge platform. And then I mentioned in that communication that the board would be working on next steps surrounding the bond. I've received about 4 emails about the item since it was run in the reporters from community members feeling that the letter, and I heard that a little bit tonight in some of the public comment, kind of focused on the 50% issue rather than what are we going to do now about the bond. And so I just wanted to help explain kind of who was the audience originally for that and how those then were kind of repurposed as guest editorials, and we were a little surprised by that. But I did mention that we'd be working on next steps, and so it really wasn't meant to be an in-depth piece about what are we going to do now and how are we going to look at the data, kind of do a post-mortem on the bond. And so we're prepared now to continue with that conversation this evening. And so as a starting point, I just want to reiterate the process that was originally used to gather information from parents and from the community to help inform the Bond and Levy Advisory Committee, who then came forward with a recommendation to the board. So how that whole process works is our staff develops options and costs for each of the measures, the levies and the bond, kind of ranging from A to E. So a number of scenarios. And the district, we hosted 4 community meetings in each of the learning communities to gather input on those options from parents, from community members, from staff members. We also provided an opportunity to provide input online if people were not able to attend those meetings. We also conducted a district-wide parent survey to get feedback on those options, and we ran a statistically valid random sample poll in the community. So all of that was data collection, and that data was shared with the Bond and Levy Advisory Committee. That committee was made up of parents, community members, and staff members. That group really looked through the data and ultimately made a recommendation to the board, and the board acted and put the measures on the ballot. Then once those measures get put on the ballot, there's 2 things that happen. As a district, we run what's called an informational campaign. So there's Public Disclosure Commission guidelines that we're all aware of that really limit the kind of communication that the district can do about the measures, and we're really focused on providing information. So we're not able to, as a district, promote. We're not able to ask people to support the measures. We can simply provide information about the measures. We do have a Lake Washington Citizens Levy Committee that's made up of volunteers from the community, and that group ran the promotional campaign. So they're able to produce materials that are promotional in nature. They're able to ask people to support the measures. So there's sort of 2 distinct campaigns that occur during ballot measures. So as I said, we obviously now have the results. We're pleased about the support that we received from the levies, and now that we know that the bond didn't pass, our next step as a district is to conduct what we're essentially calling a post-mortem to determine why that measure didn't pass. So this is the opportunity for us to dig into those reasons that prevented people from supporting the bond. So we've got a first presentation tonight, and Janine Fogart, our Deputy Superintendent of Operational Services, and Catherine Reith, our Director of Communications, are here to share data that we collected as part of this post-mortem process so we can better understand why we didn't receive the needed 60% support for the bond measure.
Thanks, Tracy. Catherine and I tonight want to share in this part of the presentation just some information about, as Tracy said, as we've collected as part of this postmortem, a comparison of the passage rates between this measure and the 2010 measure, and then some of the influencers that we heard about and gathered some data on. And those include the ballot itself. Many of you know there were
one of the measures was on the back of the ballot, so we've got a little bit of analysis on that, information that we've heard from the opposition, and then public perception. So starting with the comparison of the votes, in February of 2010, 3 measures were run, and if you compare those to February of 2014, you can see on this chart the percentage of passage rate for the EP&O and the capital levy were up fairly significantly, 4 to 5%, and the bond measure, while it didn't pass, did have an increased percentage from the February of 2010 measure. Just a little context for that 57.79% kind of compared to the required passage rate. That represents 685 votes, so you can kind of tell just the scope of the percentages in that. One of the other components that we looked at was the issue of the ballot being on the back, the bond measure, excuse me, being on the back of the ballot. And there's a lot of data on this chart, but I just wanted to highlight some key things that we found while looking at both Lake Washington, Bellevue, Issaquah, and North Shore's ballots, because there were different conditions that existed in all of those. What we found is that in Bellevue, all of the districts in King County that ran with 3 measures had their final measure on the back of the ballot. So looking at Lake Washington, our Proposition 3, the number of people who cast votes on the 3rd measure was 5.68% lower than compared to the measures on the front of the ballot. In Bellevue, a similar situation occurred. They lost 4.31% of the bond measure, which was on the back of the ballot. In Issaquah, they didn't have a bond, but they had a transportation levy, and in that district, 4.92% less people cast votes on the measure that was on the back of the ballot. North Shore is a bit of an interesting case study because they have both property within King County and Snohomish County. Snohomish County's ballot actually had all 3 measures on the front of the ballot. So they actually had voters who received King County ballots that had the final measure on the back of the ballot, where their Snohomish County measure was on the front of the ballot. In looking at King County, they had, or excuse me, looking at North Shore, in King County, they had again, a little different in that they ran their bond as Prop 2, so that was on the front, and then their capital levy on as Prop 3, which was on the back in King County. So for their measure on the back in King County, they lost 7.44% of the votes cast. Now that's not looking at the percentage that voted yes, that's just the total number of votes cast. So again, the assumption is that people failed to turn the ballot over. While on their Prop 2, which ran on the front, which was their bond, they only lost 0.66%, so less than 1% failed to vote on the bond. And then if you compare with the Snohomish County portion of the ballot, the measure, both the Prop 2 and Prop 3 only lost less than 1%, 0.28% of those measures were a reduction in the number of voters voting on those measures. In addition, we've looked at some of the things that were raised as concerns by the opposition. Again, these are general, just kind of general highlights, but belief that it is cheaper and are more appropriate to rebuild than remodel, and we heard a little bit of that tonight. Belief that the district is going above and beyond the state standards compared to the state construction funding methodology. Belief that the 1998 bond was supposed to provide space for 27,000 students, and that the overall cost to taxpayers is too high. In addition, we conducted a public perception survey, and Catherine's going to share the results of that with you.
Thank you, Janine. This was indeed a study that was done with a phone survey of residents in our district, so all of the areas of the district. Did 400 interviews with residents age 18 and older. It did include cell phones as well as home landlines. So, one of the questions that we've asked, and is actually a standard question to be asked by the research firm that we used for this with school district survey, so they ask it whatever the topic is what grade would you give to your local school district? And we used the same firm in 2010 after that particular bond measure, so we've got data from 4 years apart to be able to compare. And as you can see, between the A and B grades, in February 2010, the total that gave Lake Washington School District an A or a B was 67%, and in February of 2014, it was 74%. And that, as you'll see a little bit later, is actually pretty high compared to most school districts in Oregon and Washington, which are the two states where this research company does their work. A couple of questions we asked around economic impact, because these are some of the reasons why people may want to support schools and or may not, depending on their beliefs around these issues. So the first question was whether or not they agreed or disagreed with the statement, a good public school system is one of the most important ways a community can recruit new businesses, create jobs, and maintain a stable economy. So within our community, as you can see, it was pretty steady across those two time periods, but there's a pretty clear belief in our communities that a good public school system does have an important economic impact. Another question that was asked for those who had been residents of our area 10 years or less, so this is relatively new down to very new residents, was if there was an influence the quality of schools had on their decision to move to the Lake Washington area. And as you can see, that there was at least major or a minor influence in 76% in this latest survey of those folks as to whether or not they would move to this area. So that was definitely an impact of education on attracting residents to the area. We also wanted to see if there was agreement in the community that there is overcrowding, or at least perceptions that there is overcrowding in the district. We found that agreement with the statement overcrowding is a problem at some schools in the district had actually increased a little bit since 2010, so there is at least 65% who agree, 15% disagree, and 20% not sure. So we did ask an open-ended question about the bond measure. So the first part was a lengthy description of what was in the bond measure, and then saying that from what you've heard around the community, what are the primary reasons some residents opposed this bond measure? So this is a kind of a synopsis of what some of those different reasons were. That it was too expensive was number one, and that was clearly the number one reason that was given. Tax increase was another one. Spending, potentially wasteful spending, or not necessary, it starts to fall off there, and there's quite a few different ones. But I think the total amount of the bond measure and the fact that there was a tax increase clearly came through as reasons that people had heard that residents were opposed to the bond measure. And then we asked about some specific features of the proposal or different aspects to see if people thought there were a negative influence, a positive influence, or made no difference. As you can see here, that again, reflecting the previous question, the total amount of bonds requested was $755 million, was perceived as a fairly heavy negative influence, and that was the strongest influence one way or another of any of the aspects. So clearly the total amount of the bonds requested was a significant issue. Less of a negative influence, but still more negative than positive, were that there were 3 school funding measures on the ballot. That also that the district may or may not have planned very well to accommodate the growth. There's a perception around the recently built Lake Washington High School that was something that was being expanded already. And some of the other arguments that that Janine already covered from the opposition campaign. On the positive side, the plans to remodel Juanita High School was more positive than negative, and the design and appearance of schools built recently in the district was also more positive than negative. So this was the summary of key findings from our research firm. So these are some of the different reasons why the bond measure may not have reached the level of support needed. And again, the total amount of the request and the fact that taxes would increase were really the key pieces that we heard back from the community. And again, some of the other things that I've already covered here, so I won't read through all of them for you. But also in the summary of key findings was yet the bond measure nearly passed with nearly reached the 60% supermajority despite these concerns. They found that support for the Braun proposal was a testament to our strong reputation. And again, nearly 3 in 4 residents gave a district an A or B for its overall performance, and this is amongst the highest grades that CFM, which is the firm that did the polling, has found for a school district in 20 years of conducting research. So that was our positives from the research findings. So, Janine? Any questions on?
No, and as you know, we've also had gotten feedback from our PTAs since they are all over the district and asked them what they're hearing to kind of go along with the survey, and echoed perfectly and exactly the same kind of comments. The first things that rose were too much money, increasing their personal taxes, and the question about not totally understanding why the rebuild versus going in and taking a building and trying to modernize it. So that one to me has got the high education piece to it.
Anybody else? Okay, so really the postmortem is about better understanding why the bond measure didn't pass, and once we have a better understanding of why the measure didn't pass, we can determine what are the next steps. So there was a board work session that was held on 2 Mondays ago, and at that time the board was able to discuss some Last Monday, okay. Last Monday, to discuss some potential options. And I think it's important to reiterate that our needs have not changed. The bond measure didn't pass, but we definitely still have growing enrollment. We have the need for additional classrooms, the need to modernize aging schools. And so the work session last week was to talk about, given the needs are the needs, and given the information now we have regarding why the bond measure didn't pass, what are some options and what are some timelines? The 2 main options that were discussed during the work session were running the measure, again, as is, or to determine potentially looking at a different timeline and strategy to still accomplish the needs of the district. So option 1 that was discussed, run the same measure, cost the same. Option 2 was discussed in terms of modifying the timeline, looking at what that would do to the cost and to still accomplish the needs in a timeline, potentially in 2 separate efforts. So the board asked for some further analysis of option 2, and that's what we want to present to you now. So Janine and I are going to present a second presentation here to provide the further analysis that we have done following the work session. And this is, I'm really focusing on an analysis of that second option.
So just by a little background, just to remind everyone that the February 2014 bond measure included really 2 components: new schools needed for growth, and included in that component was 3 new elementaries, 2 in Redmond and 1 in Kirkland, 1 new middle school, additions to Eastlake High School and Lake Washington High School, science, technology, engineering, and math-focused high school on the west side of the district, and an internationally focused secondary school on the east side of the district. The other component of the measure was to replace aging schools, which included Juanita High School, Kamiakin, Evergreen, Kirk, Rockwell, and Meade. The original timeline we went over was looking at both the new and existing schools, and as we looked at the board's direction of what options we might consider if we were looking at an alternate proposal or a proposal that focused on the, oops, that's me, sorry, on the most immediate needs. This timeline helped to inform that, because you can see much of the growth projects were originally scheduled to be in the beginning because we have great immediate needs for space for growth. So the options discussed were to rerun the measure, same measure in April, or to modify the measure and run it in April. And we talked about the timeline. The deadline for getting on the April election is March 7th, 2014, and that would require a resolution to be presented or received by the county by this Friday in order to be on the April ballot. We also talked a little bit about April being the timeline for the potential of maintaining projects on schedule, where other elections, future elections, would require modification to that schedule that we had put together. So as we looked at the projects that were most immediate needs, or those needs that we really would be experiencing in the first 4 years, and then the idea that the longer term needs, or those needs that came between 2018 and 2022, could be broken into a second component or a future bond measure. So option 2 that we looked at, the projects that we have determined, and after further analysis, looking that we would need the 3 elementary schools, the 2 in Redmond, the 1 in Kirkland, the middle school in the Redmond area, the addition to Lake Washington High School, Juanita High School, and the STEM-focused school on the west side of the district would be necessary in the first 4 years, while the projects listed there, Kamiakin, Evergreen, Kirk, Rockwell, Meade, the addition to East Lake High School, and the International Focus School are really projects that are needed in the time frame of the second 4 years, or from 2018 to 2022.
I just want to mention here that you'll see there's an estimated total amount that we'll unpack as the presentation furthers, that this scenario, this option of running the projects needed to accommodate growth in April, the estimated total would be $404 million, and you can see that we've got a TBD on the future, and we're going to come back toward the end of the presentation to explain the costs a little bit more and why there's a TBD there in the future.
So one of the components we looked at in terms of looking at those projects that would be needed in the first 4 years, of course, is the enrollment and capacity. Just by way of reminder for everyone, we have been grappling with the number of capacity issues. There were identified need for additional schools in 2010, and that measure did not pass. Subsequently passed the levy to deal with the high school additions and the STEM school. But again, these are continuing needs that have been identified in 2010 and continue as we can grow and have students who need space.
And what you saw in the 2014 there, this is an old slide, so just to explain to folks, that was kind of the original schedule, so this is just showing some history.
So, thank you. Enrollment projections, one of the things that's important, I think, to realize in the enrollment projections, if you look at the current chart there, or the chart for 12-13, many of the students who are going to be in the projects that we're talking about now, especially in the high schools and middle schools, are in the system right now. So we are seeing bigger incoming classes of kindergarten, first grade, second grade, than we are exiting students in high school. And so those grades continue to sustain and grow, so that as those larger classes come through the system, the chart for 21-22 shows that in addition to those larger classes matriculating through, we also have some additional growth from development and in-migration of folks. This chart shows the comparison of the enrollment compared to our capacity. So you can see over the years of the levy, the enrollment projections currently exceed our permanent capacity. Our permanent and total capacity, which includes portables, were relatively aligned in 12-13, but as the years progress, the enrollment will, without any future projects, will substantially exceed the capacity that we have to house the students. Just to talk a little bit about the specific learning communities and the areas, primary areas of focus, you'll see from this that the high schools in both the Lake Washington, and the numbers in red here represent the number of students where enrollment exceeds the capacity available in the first set of columns for total capacity, and in the second set of columns for permanent capacity. So the red kind of pops out at you as Juanita Learning Community will have a substantial number of unhoused students in the high school level. Lake Washington at all levels, Lake Washington Learning Community at all levels. Redmond Learning Community at elementary, at middle school, and then at high school near the end of the time frame, the 8-year time frame. And in the East Lake Learning Community, middle school, and then the high school near the end of the time frame. So just in summary, our enrollment has been growing. From 2012-13 to 13-14, we were up from 25,309 to 26,089. 4,000 more students are expected in the next 8 years. We come by those projections by monitoring the King County bursts. We track all of the developments. We call all of the developers each year, monitor a number of students that come from each single family and multifamily home, and use that to help us project going forward.
So Janine, just to be clear on that, I mean, 8 years out, a good 3 years of those aren't born, but the next 4 years, those kids, we've already tracked most of them. We know where they live already, so they exist. It's not a forecast per se.
Correct.
Just wanted to be okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, we use historical. We have a birth number from King County, which of course represents all of King County, but we use historical trends to project the number of those students who will come to us as kindergartners, and that's a fairly stable and predictable number over time. And then the other thing I think that's important to note is that the bond measure included the funding for all-day kindergarten. So our current standard of service for all-day kindergarten is to provide one all-day kindergarten, and then where space is available to expand that to additional all-day kindergartens based on demand, but the bond incorporated the funding of all-day kindergarten or the space to provide for all-day kindergarten.
So just to take on to that, based on the McCleary decision, by 2018, the state legislature is supposed to provide all districts in the state of Washington funding to provide all-day kindergarten. Right now, we receive funding only to provide half-day kindergarten. We can provide all-day kindergarten options for a fee for parents when we have the space available. So in part of our space planning, we have to plan for the room that we will need to be able to provide all-day kindergarten to all students once the state funds all-day kindergarten.
Also, at this time, I believe it's about 70% of our kindergartners are in all-day K. Mm-hmm. So there already is a community demand as well, is the piece too.
That's correct. And in many of our buildings, we're able to allow for more than one all-day kindergarten. So we wanted to spend a little bit of time explaining again the numbers and capacity needs as we talk about enrollment growth and the need for additional capacity. So that's what Janine just took us through. And that leads to, so which projects ended up in this option that we're exploring for an April 2014 bond measure, and why?
So in addition to the growth projects that we talked about, the excuse me, start here. Option 2 includes the projects that we've included in the discussion for option 2 include the new schools and classrooms to prevent overcrowding, and that includes the 3 elementary schools, the middle school, the addition at Lake Washington High School, the new STEM-focused school on the Juanita High School campus, and then the Juanita High School rebuild.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about the last 3 there, and that knowing that even in the survey data that we looked at earlier, there's sort of some question about the addition at Lake Washington High School, and just talk a little bit about the rationale, especially for the addition at Lake Washington High School, the new STEM-focused school on Juanita High School, and the Juanita High School rebuild as part of this option. But do you want to ask something, Chris, before we go on?
So to prevent overcrowding, is this by 2018 or 2014?
These projects...
2018 or 2022, sorry, I got it backwards. But, so if we're talking about option 2, is the overcrowding going to happen in the next 4 years?
Yes.
Or is this 4 years out?
This is the overcrowding in the next 4 years.
Thank you.
And current. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about Lake Washington High School. Lake Washington High School was built in 2011, and one of the questions we've heard is why Lake Washington High School was built and now it's being considered for an addition as part of this project. So just to remind you that the facility planning for Lake Washington High School began prior to grade configuration. Lake Washington High School was in the 2006 bond measure. The planning for that began in 2004 or 5, and the grade configuration concept was not, it was not something that was being moved forward at that time. So, however, when we looked at grade configuration, we determined that we had some unhoused capacity at high schools at that time, if you'll remember, and that the move to grade configuration would not only support some programmatic needs that we had and interests that we had, but would also prevent us from having to build elementaries. Moving a class of 2,000 students approximately to high school prevented us from building 4 elementary schools. So it did serve a need in the bigger picture of things by reducing the overall capital demand, not having to build those elementaries, and using additional capacity that we had available at the high schools. And the good news was the facility was built with expansion in mind in the future.
I'll talk a little bit about the STEM part next. So one of the pieces of data we thought would be helpful to share would be the demand that we continue to experience from parents for our choice schools and choice programs. So this data shows this year's current data when we look at our secondary choice schools, secondary choice school programs, the application data. We had 2,408 applications for 438 spots. So there continues to be a desire for these programs, and if you move ahead to the next slide, we opened the new STEM high school on the east side of the district, and what this shows is who that school is currently serving in terms of school of origin. So when we look at the number of 9th grade applicants, we can see the number of students who applied from each high school, and then based on the lottery, what the result was. So kind of the important thing I think to look at is the number applied, and you can see pretty clearly that Eastlake High School students are applying based on the location of the STEM school. Next is Redmond High School students, then Lake Washington, then Juanita. And we've got private school students, students who are currently residing in our attendance area but attending private school are also applying to that program. So right now, we're able to serve, because of the location of the STEM school, more students from the east side of the district than the west side of the district. Part of the plan is to have a STEM school located on the Juanita High School campus that can provide some equity of access to other students. And I want to also put in the kind of reminder here that at the same time we were opening the STEM school, we were building STEM programs in all of our comprehensive high schools. So this is about not just having STEM opportunities at those two schools, but having them in all of our schools. And by furthering our school choice program options, we're also able to better use property that the district currently owns. So if we were to build another comprehensive high school, we would need 40 buildable acres, and that's expensive and difficult to find. We're able to situate a choice school on a smaller piece of property, and in this case, on property that the district already owns on the campus of Juanita High School. The result is then we can serve the same number of students at each of our comprehensive high school campuses, essentially. Do you want to add anything to that, Janine?
Quick comment. Is the comment mic still open? Because that might be what we're getting in the...
Thank you, Matt. A little bit about Juanita High School. So the inclusion of Juanita High School rebuild is based on the fact that it was built in 1971. It was built as an open campus school and has many challenges in the current building. The other component of including Juanita High School project, as Tracy mentioned, is the STEM school and the ability to co-locate the STEM school on the Juanita High campus, reducing the requirement to find additional property for that project. The actual looking at the building study for Juanita High School, the current building, it has 26,000 fewer square feet than the current ed spec calls for the number of students that it's designed to serve. Just given the structure of the building, the analysis was that remodeling it to meet the current educational specification would be difficult. It also would require numerous moves, portables, substantial number of portables on site so students could be housed during the construction, and it would result in a greatly extended timeline for the project because of the phasing that would be required in those moves. And then just given the site constraints too, remodeling it would substantially limit the ability to improve kind of the site amenities, the bus loop, parking, those kinds of things.
So just a little bit to add to what Janine is saying here. You'll notice that we're talking about Juanita High School as a rebuild, and it's important to make that distinction because as we talk about modernization, there's the studies that are done before modernization to determine whether building a new school or remodeling the current school is the best way to go. And we heard that shared a bit, I know, in the opposition, and also kind of reiterated tonight during public comments and questions around our approach. This particular new in lieu study is the building results study that's being referenced here, and why that study shows that remodeling Juanita would be challenging and why rebuilding it would be the direction that we would go. So we're talking about it as a rebuild.
Do you want me to add to that now or wait till we discuss further? I sat here and wrote a whole list of reasons why this school, as a community member who lives there and had 2 students who went there, so I'm not talking, as a non-knowledgeable person. And obviously it's very important to me on this particular school, somewhere along the way that wherever, if it's this bond or whenever we place a bond, that it gets done. Just some of the comments that we've heard is the buildings should last another 40 years or last 40, 50, 60 years. I think people need to remember when some of the schools were built that they weren't built to last that long to begin with. So that isn't necessarily true that the schools were built to last 40 years. The other thing, too, we've had conversations about comparing rebuilding for your home. You wouldn't do a home that was that old. The wear and tear on a school and a public facility, I don't think you compare a house. I think if you want to have that conversation, we should be talking about public facilities where have similar type of use and activity compared to a person's home, and when you're talking about building or not building. Permits have changed a lot over time, and what we could do when you go into a building, just watching a show this week about a family that went in to have their house modernized, and when you start digging and all of a sudden you find something you didn't have, budgets change. You find things that you don't want, like asbestos, and all of a sudden you've got something else. So all of that comes into play anytime we look at a modernization versus a rebuild. We do and have maintained Juanita High School. There have been levy dollars that have been put in there many, many times over the last 10 years to address the issues of leaking from the roofs, which is a flat roof, was designed that way, to address the heat issues. We continue to hear that students are either hot, cold, or having blankets. The electricity and not having adequate, and the communal spaces of bathrooms and cafeteria are not adequate to meet the needs of students. So all that said, you have to put, I think, all of that into place in addition to what you have here, is to actually be in the facility itself and evaluate it from that standpoint and the people who are there at school and the staff. And again, I think we can't I don't think we can compare a house and what you would do in your own home to what we do with public facilities. I believe in trying to keep old buildings as long as we can and fixing them. I think that's a wonderful thing. But you reach a point where you can't fix it anymore, and I think that's personally where Juanita High is.
When you say open campus, I seem to recall, wasn't Juanita School built without walls internally? And so they had to basically redo it?
It was built open concept in the 70s in a time when, if it wasn't for the State Board of Health regulations, there would have been almost no windows. As it is, there's as few as they could get away with. They found, lo and behold, that open concept did not work, so they threw up the walls. The heating and ventilation system does not accommodate that redesign. It was also built in a time when we built buildings cheap. And that is part of our problem, and the reason we're on this 4-phase modernization plan is because in the past, buildings were built. The state had a 20-year program, then they had a 30-year program. The buildings were built with poor design, flat roofs. Nobody builds flat roofs anymore, at least we hope not. The area cost allowance and the area square foot allowance that people keep talking about that the state uses as funding formulas do not reflect reality for anyone building a school in this state. They're simply a funding formula tool because the state has not enough money to fund the capital needs for the state, so it comes up with formulas to help with their allocation. And those formulas are based on these area cost allowance, square foot allocations, and also on the ability of the districts to actually support their own capital programs. We are obviously not a district that receives a lot of capital support from the state. We receive some for which we are duly grateful. They practically make us grovel, but we do not receive a lot. And frankly, that is because many parts of our state are so economically depressed, and yet they also need to educate their students that they need more support from the state.
Just going back to, if you don't have to, or you could, the Juanita Learning Community Capacity slide that was put up. Part of that rebuild is to, I believe the capacity right now is
It's about 1,100 for the permanent building, I think.
for the permanent building, and then there's portables on site housing the rest. I believe the rebuild is to be a capacity of 1,400, correct? For the building itself, and STEM would have
600.
So the rebuild is looking not just at rebuilding Juanita as is, but to actually address the growth issues that are currently the problem at the school. Will those also address the problems going, because that's sort of that question, are we addressing the current overcrowding? And is that addressing the future enrollment that would be there at the same time?
Between the Lake Washington High School addition and the rebuilding of Juanita High and STEM, it would address those within those two learning communities.
So we'd be adding an additional
500.
500.
At Lake Washington High School.
And
Well,
300 at Juanita, and 600 at STEM.
Right, the STEM is an important part of the capacity issue.
So I've got a quick clarification on the slide that's up. Remodeling to meet current ed spec would be difficult. I'm hoping is a euphemism for they cost about the same, and one of them disrupts our kids' learning for 5 years, or the other one can be done in a year. And anybody who's lived next to people remodeling would appreciate how fun it is to learn next to that. So I'm hoping that the building study, that the total cost is comparable for new and Lou.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
What?
It would be difficult. It's not a very
I think that's talking about the structure.
Okay.
I actually think it would be almost impossible. I think it's being rather
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's that you can't remodel to modern standards in that building.
Looking at the actual physical structure of the building, where the walls are, where load bearing is, you know, that kind of thing. Could you, because if you think about our current educational specification with the ideas of common areas, planning rooms, you know, trying to take that and take a building that is, you know, was built the way it was, that it was really more around that,
In
the
addition,
possibility of it.
when you do a major remodel, you have to bring it up to current building codes, which includes many higher requirements in terms of earthquakes.
I did my house a couple years ago. I'm well aware of that.
So, but those are it's not only the changes in education, what we're doing, and what we are trying to do with our new buildings is build them to be adaptable as education changes and evolves. We do not want to be, whatever the future school board is in 30 years from now, in the position that we are in right now, explaining choices made before we were involved.
And I think one other comment, too, that we heard, and I know people who have modernized their house, remodeled a house, we have heard that people believe that you could do a remodel of a school like Juanita High School if you just remodeled it in a summer. And I really believe that that's not a correct statement, and I don't want people to think that is a huge project if you were going to modernize that building, and it would not happen in 2 months in one summer.
Well, in addition, when you, and we have done some remodels. Not every project in our modernization phase has been a complete tear down. Each school is looked at, but it does draw, as Tracy, Dr. Pierce pointed out, it is difficult. You do have to face. You also have to protect students and staff as you're doing remodeling. And these are buildings where, you know, we're talking about asbestos, PCBs, and other things that will have to be controlled for, lead, those three in particular, when you are working on buildings that were built prior to the 1980s.
Sorry, I just wanted to have that explanation out
figured
there.
it out. I do this
Good additions.
for my day
Thank
job.
you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So just to reiterate, this idea that we're providing further analysis on would be to focus on our immediate needs in an April 2014 bond measure, to include the projects that we just went through and with the rationale that we just went through, for a total amount of $404 million, and to defer the longer-term needs to a future 2018 bond measure. So looking ahead, based on the needs that we have, including those projects that you see in the future 2018 bond measure column in a future bond measure. So we want to talk for a moment about that piece of the overall option as well. And we wanted to start, Nancy mentioned, decisions made and pathways sort of begun many, many years ago. So we wanted to spend just a few minutes talking about our history and why we have the modernization phases that we have, and what opportunity we have moving forward with this option 2 strategy.
So really beginning in 1997, we took a look at kind of the systematic issues that we had with aging buildings and developed a plan to ensure that buildings were physically sound and met the educational needs. We developed a program where each building would be looked at in every 30 to 40 years, and it was developed in conjunction with a process and divided the school district into 4 phases, 4 8-year phases.
And that, you mentioned process, but just to be really clear, that was a citizen committee process engaged in developing that 4-phase strategy. Right.
The original modernization schedule then conceptualized these 4 phases. They would be done in 8-year chunks, if you will. The first phase, you could see the schools listed there. Those projects have all been completed, as well as the second phase.
And before you move on from this slide, Janine, I think it's important that some of the questions that came up during the recent bond measure were, we've got half of our schools in the district that are have been modernized and are up to date, and then we've got the rest of our schools that aren't. And what are we going to do about that, or why is that? And so I just think it's important to remind people that that is because we are halfway through a 4-phase schedule that was developed in 1997 to look ahead and to have a plan to address all of our schools in the future. And so now we are halfway through that. We've just completed all of those schools in phase 2, and so now we're trying to determine how do we move forward, not only in a way that helps us accommodate our need for additional schools and classrooms because we're growing, but to complete sort of a promise or a pathway that was begun back in 1998 about modernizing our schools.
And prior to that 1998 bond, we conducted a process similar to the one that we've just been through, where we held community meetings and gathered input on a series of potential options, and those focused substantially on the scope that would be included in the bond measure and the modernization program. So we presented the idea that we could, actually presented at the time the idea that we could remodel the building to ensure that it was what we coined it the term warm, safe, and dry. That would be your basic remodel of roofs and heating systems and those kinds of things. That's one end. The other was we had developed an educational specification that really talked about the kinds of amenities and the kinds of programs we wanted to support in our schools, and that would be another option for this bond measure that was developed and processed with the community. And then there was a kind of a between measure. You could do you could do the warm, safe, and dry remodeling and some of the educational program that we had developed in this process. And the input from the community at the time was to do the project with including all of the components with the educational specification, and that really is what helped shape the modernization program as we know it today. And that kind of approach continued through the subsequent phases.
So if we think about this 2-part option 2 that we're providing further analysis on, it's an opportunity for us if we do the projects that we described in April 2014 measure and defer the things that wouldn't help immediate needs, there's still needs within the 8-year time frame. If we defer that part to a 2018 bond measure, it gives us an opportunity to re-engage the community in this process that was started back in 1997, to really reevaluate our historic approach, knowing that we're halfway through a pathway that was started back in 1997, and to ensure that our decisions and direction forward aligns with our strategic goals as an organization to ensure academic success for every student, to provide safe and innovative learning environments. 3 and 4, well, 3 maybe doesn't directly align to the facility program so much, but to use our resources effectively and to be fiscally responsible, and certainly to engage our communities. So it's an opportunity to revisit, refresh, re-engage, reevaluate. So why we've got a TBD amount is because if we conduct a process and some community engagement, it could determine our approach to future projects that are part of 2018, and so we don't have an estimated total dollar amount for that 2018 measure. We still have what projects, though, would be needed to continue our modernization and to continue to accommodate growth. So now we want to step back to the April 14, the first part of this phase option 2, and talk a little bit more about the cost behind and the implications, tax implications, so forth, of that $404 million.
Before you go on, if I can just ask a question. Back on the Redmond Learning Community slide that was shown, the numbers don't quite make sense to me. So I'm just trying to see how they came, because I think it's without the portables, because there are 4 portables there. And it's showing in here that that Redmond High has 101 open spots, and then currently we have 4 portables. So I'm trying to figure out where those numbers came from.
I believe the charts show the progression of the feeder pattern as it's established, and one of the things that's affected that in the last couple of years has been the variance requests. So this chart doesn't show the number of students who varianced from Eastlake to Redmond. So it shows that what the enrollment would be if
the variants were not there.
Correct.
And Eastlake shows it as if the variance was there.
Correct.
So that's my question, because currently the variances are there. Correct. And there is overcrowding. There's portables. So the question as we look through this, are Eastlake and Redmond learning communities needs taken in that current crowding, as well as to seat capacity, into how it would take place?
And I think the answer to that is, with the projects that we have identified, the elementaries and the middle schools, we will need to do rebalancing of the entire district in boundaries that would then be the way which we would help balance the high schools.
As well. Okay.
Absolutely. Because elementaries feed to middle schools, which feed to high schools. So essentially by changing elementary boundaries, you change the catchment area of the high schools. And that will be
okay. Just knowing that 2 of those elementary schools that are slated as new are feeding into that Redmond learning community.
But the boundaries of elementary schools and the feeder patterns would have to be part of that whole process that we looked at.
So that will be a question that comes up. Also, if we could fix this slide, at least to show what current information is there, because it's somewhat misleading. It says total and permanent's the same, and so
I think that slide may not be updated for the current year.
So basically, we're saying, I think I'm on the slide before the one you're on, that Redmond High School does not need additional work before 2022?
Wait, stop.
What?
No, Janine, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted you to go back one slide. Nancy says she was on the previous slide.
Okay. Well, no, this one right here.
Okay, I just wanted to be on the same slide.
Redmond High School's not on there. So we do additions at LDub because it was built without the 9th grade. and Juanita in the STEM, and then Eastlake High School, but you think that Redmond's with the rebounding is going to be okay?
Rebounding and the additional spots that would be open up on the STEM. By opening up a STEM West, it will open up slots in STEM East for additional students from Redmond and Eastlake.
And the International Focused High School on the east side, I'm assuming, would also.
And
that's in the second round.
Yeah, I'm looking at the whole 8 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've got a question on, if we take the schools that we are delaying the projects on, and if we keep the projects as is, how much more will it cost us in 4 years to do the same work we want to do now? It seems to me that we're going to be looking at increased costs for construction material and so forth.
So one of the things we talked about Monday was running a bond measure in April does provide us the opportunity to stay on schedule with the original projects. In this proposal, the 2 projects, and assuming a 2018 measure, assuming a positive outcome, the projects that are in that time frame for Kamiak and Evergreen, Kirk, Rockwell, Meade, could still maintain the same schedule that we had. So just by delaying the vote, we're really just chunking the sort of the ask into 2 sections. The projects that would have to be delayed in terms of actual opening would be the addition at Eastlake and the STEM school. And I believe that's like 2 years, so.
The International Focus School.
The International Focus School, I'm sorry, did I say STEM? Yeah.
Go pop back slide 4. It's true, everything goes up as you delay, but there's also a limit to how much we can reasonably handle at a time.
Yeah, and they wouldn't have started being built till then anyway.
Well, that was the
No,
plan.
I understand, but I think it's an explanation of the funding, sure.
There would be a slight inflationary increase for Eastlake and the International Focus School by delaying them. I think it's 2 years or so. 2 years is what we're.
Yeah, if we could accelerate work, obviously, at this time it saves money, but
Well, I'm
there are
concerned
limits.
too about those that are being modernized and not being replaced necessarily, but the idea that in 4 more years or 2 more years, you're going to have more deterioration, and you're going to have a higher cost to fix those schools.
You probably know a lot within that time frame. I wouldn't think in that area.
Yeah, and again, depending on whether the determination is whether they're new, if they're new in lieu, then of course that's different than modernizing them. So I think that's still kind of TBD based on our additional process that we need.
A couple things I don't know how well our community is aware of is OSPI in the state regulates all of this. So we're required to do the ed spec. We keep talking about the ed spec. It gets revised with each bond, but the state requires that, and that lays out what we're doing. So that's what we're building to. And there's a community process involved with that. And on the question of, oh, Mark, it was in response to that, and it just flew out of my head. I'll come back to it.
I have the same problem.
Yeah, because it has to do,
So,
come back.
Janine, on the slide, let's see, I think it's just back one, the adjusted timeline equals opportunity. Oh, shoot, it must be forward from this guy then. Slide 27.
I'm sorry, did I go?
Sorry.
Oh.
I'm just looking for option, the adjusted timeline equals opportunity. And so here, are we proposing to, in focusing the bond on immediate space needs, it really doesn't have anything in it that is renovation, except for a renovation that solves space needs at Juanita.
Which would be a rebuild,
Is this talking about this as an opportunity to revisit something that we who've been working with the districts for, well, gosh, a little bit longer than we might have anticipated? Honestly, the people who started this process of renovation aren't running the process of renovation anymore. So is this, when you say it's an opportunity, is this an opportunity for us to, over the next 4 years, to really revisit what is the role of renovation in the district and what is the I mean, honestly, it's a combination of what's our commitment to it, and because just doing it because we started it, I hate to admit I've done that more than one time, and just because you started it doesn't mean you can't course correct. But I do think that this might be, maybe we've underemphasized the opportunity to revisit and rework what the plan is for the last two phases.
Right. I think if we go back one slide, you know, we explained at that point that in 1997 there was this process that said we need to do more than just warm, safe, and dry, and this is our approach, and that informed the first two phases, and now we're, you know, halfway through that fourth phase. We did hear, and we shared, and we heard tonight in public comment, there's some questions about strategy and, you know, why we have the approach that we do. So this timeline, this adjusted timeline of option 2 in 2 parts would provide us an opportunity to keep to our original timeline, focus on first the schools that we need for growth, which are new schools, and rebuilding Juanita High School, and then to reconvene some community processes around how we approach modernization and accomplish the rest of the projects that are on phase 3 and phase 4 in terms of modernization.
You know, I have no objection to that, and I don't want this to be taken that way, but I do want to emphasize that this modernization phase 3 went through our bond advisory group, whatever it's called. I mean, it wasn't put together, and we do actually, no, and they did look at the schools, and because of our growth needs, we did take some of the original modernization projects off and delayed them. So it's not that every 8 years we're not looking at it. And there are a few people around that were involved originally. What I did want to say in response to what Mark brought up is another program that the state has is the Asset Preservation Program. Now, they had this program back when this modernization call started. They called it a 2%. That didn't work, so now it's the Asset Preservation Program. And we've talked about state funding. I think there's still a lot of confusion in the difference between the general fund money that the state gives us, which are where we're fighting to get them to fully fund basic education. They're not anywhere near that. We use our levies as supplements. But capital is always a totally separate issue. Capital is not funded the same way. It's a different budgeting process at the state, and it's a different process at the state, and you cannot mix the money. So if the state were to give us more capital, it would not help us with operation. And if they were to give us more operational money, it would not help us with capital. They are very separate. But they do control what districts, even though in the past they wanted schools to last 20 years, and now they have 30 years, under their asset preservation program, if schools are not maintaining the buildings, they will not give you any money for rebuilding. So we are not neglecting our buildings. When we get to the point where we say it's at the end of the life of the building, we really do mean that. Obviously, there are people who disagree with us and argue about it, but we do have these processes and evaluations and reports that we send in to the state in these areas. So, you know, I could go on and I'll stop, but it is not that we are not controlled, overseen, et cetera, et cetera.
Tracy, can we go back to the slide that splits the bond into?
Scroll ahead a couple and we should get to, there we go.
There we go. I have a concern, but I didn't hear it in the attitude surveys that we had, and I want to know if there is any feedback. My concern is by splitting the bond, I realize we get the cost down for getting it past the people that don't want a higher tax and so forth, but I have a concern that if we split the bond, there's going to be a perception that we are being disingenuous the first time around in the dollar amount we ask for, because we can say, oh, now we can delay this other half. That is a concern of mine. I understand that you can always readjust priorities, but I really would like to know, was there any perceptions given in the survey whatsoever that the amount was too high, or not too high, but the idea was that it was disingenuous that we asked for too much at one time and we really just didn't need it. My concern is if we split it now, it's going to exacerbate that feeling.
I think one thing I want to point out before we go back to the survey is I think it's important to how we frame this. If we go back to the timeline slide real quick, the original approach was let's look at our needs for the next 8 years and let's ask for the dollar amount required to fund for the next 8 years. Some of the feedback we heard and saw in the survey was the dollar amount was just too high. And so what we're not saying is that our needs have changed or that to accomplish all of what you see here, the dollar amount would change, but we can accomplish the same projects in the same timeline, but ask for the funding in 2 separate chunks, for lack of a better word. And it does give us the opportunity, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, to look at those modernization, to look at that modernization schedule, to look at the projects that would be on the future 2018 bond measure, and to do cost analysis and some of those things. So I think, you know, it's an education piece, and it's also how we're framing it. Our needs haven't changed. We're not saying we needed this much money and now we're coming back and saying we only need this much money. It's saying this is what we need to accomplish the first 4 years of the timeline, and the timeline we can go back to that shows that these were the projects that we were going to do in the first 4 years. Previously, we were just going to ask for the authority for the fund collection for the next 8 years, and in this strategy, we're going to have to do it in 2 separate asks.
You know, and I think one of the real issues is if it wasn't for the growth, those modernization projects, it's not that some of them like Kamiakin and Evergreen aren't in serious need. It's that there's only so much capacity.
Mm-hmm. And Mark, I agree with you. I think that the key is if a decision is made to do a 2-part, you know, to do a smaller request now, that it is very clear that it was not that we had less dollar need. It was a decision to, instead of doing an 8-year span, to do a 4-year and a 4-year span.
I understand. My concern, too, is that with interest rates as low as they are now and the price of the bonds that you're going to be able to float at this point, it's, in my mind, at least from the projections I've seen, bonds are going to cost a whole lot more in about 2 or 4 years.
Just one piece of information on that. Under the municipal bond rules, we can only sell, regardless of when we vote it, we can only sell the bonds within 3 years, 85% of what we think we'll spend in 3 years. So there's federal laws around the municipal bonds that prevent you from, say, passing a $755 million issue, selling them all tomorrow, and then banking that money. You have to sell them essentially as you go, if you will, based on, we actually have to do a cash flow of the schedule, and so we definitely do want to take advantage of selling them at, you know, the lowest possible interest rates we can, but we do have to live within those guidelines of the spend down.
You know, and I think it was real obvious when they came up with the modernization plan and they had it on these 8-year cycles. There's a lot of economies. If you do it every 8 years, it's a lot less, you know, it's easier for staff. It's easier for our citizens. But, you know, costs continue to accelerate. We've got growth and times are changing, and maybe we have to reevaluate it. You know, I think it's a real difficult, because I think 8 years makes a lot of sense in many ways, but it's price tag.
Ready to move on? So we're going to go. We've been unpacking, I guess you will, the option 2, which focuses on the immediate needs and defers the long-term needs. So I'm going to talk right now about the costs associated with the immediate needs. One of the things I want to share is that in our initial planning for the rates that were presented with the measure in February, we were, of course, doing that back beginning last August. At that time, the assessed value for 2014 was not known. That's not done until late November, December that we get that information. So we were projecting what we thought the 2014 assessed value would be. We had been in a series of, we had a number of years where we had dramatic growth in assessed value, and then we're in a series of years where we had some, through the kind of economic downturn, reductions in actually losses in assessed value overall in the district. So when we did those initial projections estimating the assessed value, which of course determines the rate, we wanted to be conservative. So at the time, we were looking at a 1% growth in assessed value to project those rates. Well, the actual assessed value has gone up substantially more than that, so we were conservative, not wanting to sort of over-promise increases in assessed value and sort of show a lower rate. So I want to start by talking about what the actual assessed value is and sort of resetting your mental model of the rate, because of that change, it has, because of the change in assessed value, it does have an impact on the 2014 rate. So originally, when we proposed the bond, we had a 2013 assessed value of $33.5 million, and doing a conservative estimate of growth, expected the assessed value for 2014 to be 33.8. The actual was actually 37.1 billion, it's hard to say that, $37.1 billion, or a 10.8% increase. Now, overall, that doesn't mean a lot to the district, because it doesn't mean we get more money because the assessed value goes up, it just means the rate goes down. So it doesn't, it's no windfall, but it does impact the rate that we communicate, and so I wanted to give you that background. When you look at the original estimate for the capital bond and the 6-year levy that we did that assessed value assumptions, we were projecting the 14 rate to be $1.44, and then if the bond had passed, the rate to be $1.97. Because of the increase in the assessed value.
This is at the original, the full 755. That's
correct.
Right, okay.
Yes, so that was what we presented for the bond, the February bond, and that would have been a 53-cent increase based on that assessed value. With actual assessed value going up over 10%, the 2014 rate is $1.31. So the revised estimate, again, with the full bond measure, the 755, would have been $1.76, or a 45% increase.
I just want to put in one point here, because again, we get compared to surrounding districts, and people sometimes forget that someplace like Bellevue or Seattle, the assessed value is so high that they run their bonds for, very low rates. We can't do anything about the assessed value within our district. We live with it.
And Janine, just to clarify, the revised would be 45 cents.
Correct. Did I say it wrong? I'm sorry.
Not percent, right?
45 cents. Thank you.
It sounded like percent, so we just wanted to make sure.
Clarify, yes, 45 cents in lieu of 53 cents. Again, just because of, that's just representing to the change in assessed value. So looking again a little bit more at option 2, the April bond with the immediate needs, which is a total of $404 million. The, again, actual rate now that we know the assessed value for 2014 is $1.31 for the bonds, previously passed bonds and 6-year levy. Should a April measure pass at a $404 million, the revised 2015 estimate is $1.56, or a 25-cent increase.
A quarter.
1 quarter.
1 quarter.
Doesn't buy much anywhere.
And just to kind of display that in terms of the chart that we put together, again, total tax rate going from 351.
And just to clarify again,
Yep.
this is looking at if it were $755 million bond.
Right. This is just kind of recalculating the numbers based on the assessed value. So it would have been a similar number because while the rate went down, the assessed values went up. And then looking at the 4-year proposal, the rate would go from, the total tax rate would go from 351 to 403. That incorporates the component that I talked about for the 25-cent increase in the bond if it were to pass. And then knowing that assessed value's gone up, the home value's gone up as well. So overall, that would represent a 14.9% increase from 2014 to 15, or $258 total. And that's a total of all measures, not just the bond.
That's including the 2 measures that already passed.
Correct.
Do we have figures, since the other measures have now passed, do we have figures of what this bond by itself is going to add? Because this is, I mean, this is what people are going to look at, is they're going to want to know how much the bond by itself adds to cost.
I don't think I have that in the presentation, Jackie, but we can certainly calculate that, because it would be based on the 25 cents and the average home rate. So Barbara's in the back, and she probably can calculate it on the top of her head.
Okay. I just think that's going to be the important figure that we use, which, whatever way, if we're doing it soon, that's what people are going to want to see with that one measure by itself, because at that point, that's what they're going to be looking at on a ballot.
Nothing like a math pop quiz for the back row.
We'll go on and come back to that maybe, or? $124 per year.
Okay. Okay.
Any questions on the cost?
Which is about $10 a month.
Okay.
Which is a couple of coffees.
Okay, so
Starbucks, every corner.
It's Seattle.
So the other thing that the board asked for in terms of analysis was what are the implications here if we don't run another bond measure, or if we were to run another bond measure and it were not to pass. And so I want to talk for just a minute about what we would do, and I know that that's a question that comes up. And so go ahead, Ginny, you can scroll ahead. So if we were to run another measure in April and that measure were not to pass, I think it's important that people know that there's not an option to run another measure in 2014. The soonest we could come back to run another measure would be in 2015. And so that would obviously impact timelines and those kinds of things. And so what we would need to do is take some immediate steps to determine how to house our students. And these are simply a list of potential things that we could do in lieu of building new capacity, new classrooms to house enrollment. We would need to make some other kinds of decisions. And so those options could include things like reducing or eliminating all-day kindergarten. Until 2018, until the funding comes through for all-day kindergarten, we're not obligated to provide all-day kindergarten. We know it's an attractive option for families. We know that we've got many families who are willing to pay the fee for all-day kindergarten. And currently,
70%.
Yeah, we're able to have more than, in almost all of our buildings, more than one section of all-day kindergarten is an opportunity for families. But if we were to eliminate all-day kindergarten or drastically reduce the number of options, it would free up some classroom space. So that's one potential thing that could happen. We could look at double shifting, not just at our high schools, but system-wide, different shifts of students, so we would have fewer students on campuses at any one time, and that would obviously be a big impact to the daily calendar and those kinds of things, but that is an option. We would look at how do we add portables wherever possible, and we've got some of our sites that we know are not able to take any additional portables, but we would look at every potential space that could house a portable, and we would likely need to add portables.
And the cost, remind us, because this one is with cost.
$300,000 a portable move.
$300,000 a portable.
And the double shifting, how much would that impact on the transportation?
We still need to do that analysis.
But
that would be another cost. It would depend, but yes, utilities would be a cost, transportation would be a cost.
And all these funds have to come from somewhere then to accommodate these.
Another option that we could look at it would be to change delivery models for district programs. So right now, part of our ed spec includes space to provide, for example, pull-out safety net services, those kinds of things. Those could potentially, the program delivery model could change, that could be done in hallways or, you know, not what we would consider instructional spaces, but that would be an option. I don't know if any of these in and of themselves would solve the overall problem, short-term, long-term. We all know we've done some short-term kind of Band-Aid solutions in terms of temporary boundary adjustments and those kinds of things, but these are the kinds of things we would need to look at. We're going to need to look at some boundary adjustments, and we've been talking about that even in the context of the previous bond measure. Obviously, when you open new schools, there's some rebounding that needs to occur, but as a part of a potential solution to address overcrowding, if we didn't have new schools, we would have to look at, are there some, you know, pretty district-wide substantial boundary processes that might help in the short term.
So Tracy, can I clarify on that one?
Sure.
Because I'm worried about us getting in trouble later for the promise that there won't be boundary processes in the future if we do pass the bond. And no matter how we cut it, we're going to have to do reboundarying to balance buildings and use things efficiently at some point.
That's correct. And, you know, opening new schools means you figure out through a boundary process which students attend that new school and how do we, you know, balance out attendance. So I think that was good, Chris. I don't think we're saying that we would not have to reboundary if a bond, you know, were to pass, but we could take a look at do we have some options there. Another option, again, these are all just options, would be to really look at our school year calendar. Could we look at year-round school and those kinds of things? So the reality is the students are coming to us. We welcome that, and we need to provide education for the students that come to us. And so we're going to need to do that regardless of the outcome of this past bond or any potential future bond.
And one of the comments that has been made that we've heard is that, well, there's some buildings that have space. So, you know, if you move kids around, you'll take care of your growth. How many of our schools are close to variance right now at elementary? Because I know just in the Juanita area, and I hear people thinking that those schools are not packed to the gills, but I think we have one or two that have variance options.
To pull up the open closed schools list on the district website.
I just think people need to hear that right now, today, for fall of 2014, where we are with our buildings and what we have in them currently. So this has nothing to do about what's coming to us yet. This is just dealing with what we've got today. That we have, and when my children were in elementary school and high school, all of our buildings rarely had
what's a variance?
A closed variance where you could.
Closed variance isn't common lingo.
Okay.
So
we'll
back up and
variance.
explain that.
Yes. Go ahead. So
Across
seven.
the district? 7 elementaries across the district and 3 middle schools are open to variances, which provides the opportunity for people to go to a school that they do not live in their geographic attendance area.
And on an annual basis, we determine that list of open and closed schools. Can you explain just a little bit, Janine, how that is determined and what that means?
Sure.
If a school's closed to variances?
So we go through a process of updating all of our enrollment projections. In January, we look at the school, all of the schools, comparing their capacity to their enrollment for the next year, the number of classrooms they'll need, and then we make a determination. The state law basically says you can attend any school as long as the district determines there's room. So we use this process to help identify which schools would be open for those families that want to choose to go to a different school. They can make application through the variance process.
So rephrasing the numbers you just gave us, there are 27 elementaries at present, and 20 of them are not accepting students because the facility is full.
Correct.
At the middle school level, I can never remember because
Seven.
So it's 7?
7 comprehensive.
Seven comprehensive,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and so we've only got 3 of those that are open, so over half of our middle schools are full.
Mm-hmm.
And the numbers are growing by 500 students annually. By the end of the 4 years, projections put us over capacity at all of the above?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I just think that that's an important piece of people. I know I've heard a lot that the Juanita and Kirkland folks are not seeing that we're growing because we haven't been. You know, we've been kind of, but yeah, they are bursting at the seams as well. And so I just want the Kirkland and Juanita folks to realize growth is district-wide. It's not just in Sammamish and on the east side as it's been for years. We need the space, and if you look at the recommendation, it says one Kirkland Elementary. Where that would be, we don't know yet, but there is need for another elementary school in the Kirkland area. So the public really needs to hear that one because they're not. I think I've heard more people say, why us? Well, we're growing.
How many?
Yeah. So one of the things that, my first reaction, I'm a bit of a hothead. I wound up on the board because, damn it, you guys weren't doing things right. Now I'm on the board, and it's really frustrating when someone else tells me that, damn it, you're not doing things right. And what's even worse about it is occasionally having someone be right about something, and it's just the facts speak for themselves. We failed to pass a bond. It's not that the people who voted against it are insane. That was my first election night reaction, but I've gotten past that and realized they're actually rational people. We asked for a lot. Why did we ask for a lot? Because we need a lot. This is a really big deal, and in terms of the proposed approaches, we still have a problem. We are not saying that we asked for things that we don't need. It's just that the things that we need in the next 4 years cost a lot less than the sticker shock of $750 million. I got to admit, that number still takes my breath away, and I'm amazed we did as well as we did in getting yes votes. The people who voted against are not insane, but I hope they understand how desperate we are. You can't distance learning kindergartners. Our elementary schools are not going to have enough seats for the number of children who are there by the time we get to 2018. We are adding an elementary school worth of children to our district every year for the next 4 years. As a problem for the district, we must do something about that, and I'm hoping we don't have to do some of the wonderfully creative but horrific ideas that we've had to start contemplating if we cannot pass a measure to build more buildings.
On the double shifting of schools?
Double shifting elementary is not
First of all, it's almost as bad as double desking, like a two-tier desk. Yeah, the bunk beds for desks, but the increased number needed for teachers, it just boggles my mind because I can't imagine that you would have one teacher teaching double shifts.
That is true.
And no, the double shifting.
Probably half the teachers
to hire teachers,
there for the, I mean, if there was an AM shift and a PM shift.
But I'm thinking that you're also talking about a major percentage increase in the number of teachers you'd have to have, as well as for the
not necessarily, I just was seeing, might just, the other thing I think people need to realize too is there is especially in elementary schools, there is a huge community use of our facilities after school is out for sports, our gyms, classrooms for meetings, not just student meetings, but for community meetings, neighborhood meetings.
Scouts,
And we want them there. This is their taxes. They should be able to have access to those buildings. But anytime we have to do something to schedules, there could be then a fallback. And there's not enough meeting places throughout this community for all the groups that want to get together and need to get together to do their business. And so that could have another huge impact on the community as a whole, that they would lose some of that ability to do and use space if any of these remedies, some of these remedies have to come to fruition.
In addition, there are some people in our community who think that we should have larger class sizes. Most people do not, and the state is moving towards even smaller class sizes. And every time they move towards smaller class sizes, like with all-day kindergarten, or wanting to require us to do more PE, it requires more facilities.
A point was made earlier, too, of suggesting a November ballot as opposed to an April ballot by one of the folks in the crowd. Could you give us a feel for how much more that would cost to delay the election because of the dollars?
Yeah, one of the, and I'm going to look to
Timeline
Janine to see
would
if
have to change, wouldn't it?
Yeah, based on, to keep to the timeline, we would have to spend more dollars. I don't know the dollar number off the top of my head, but we can go back and look at the work session slide from last Monday. But we'd need to spend
I believe it was $21 million of planning. If you waited till November, it was like 10 or 11. I might have one of the last digit off. It was, I think, 11 million and 20 million, or 10 million and 21 million. But it was in that range of planning that would need to occur in order to stay on schedule.
So it doubles, basically. I mean, that amount.
Yeah, that would be planning that you'd be doing. It's just planning that you'd need to do without, a surety, essentially, that the bond passed. And then if the bond didn't pass, then you'd essentially be taking architectural plans and putting them on the shelf until the bond passed, which would then result in additional costs when you had to sort of bring them off the shelf, re-up them, re-look at the current codes, those kinds of things.
Okay, well, the next step is going to be decide what to do, and I'm going to suggest let's take a 5-minute break.
Oh, I had a quick question.
You may finish this piece with a question.
Okay.
Before the 5-minute break.
Okay.
That would be okay.
I wanted to know what the overall capacity numbers we were providing, in the sense at high school, the secondary, the middle school, and the elementary school by the new revised. Because one of the questions that comes up, we have portables, and that's the question. So the question is, how many actual seats are being given total overall? So much as in Lake Washington Learning Community, what needed, we said it was 300, 500, and 600, so a total of 1,400. For the elementary schools, what is that? Also, will it take care of portables that are currently on school properties and currently housing our overcrowding, or are those still going to be a component of what is here to address? I was just adding the 2 elementary schools that are planned in the Redmond Learning Community. It's 1,100. I think they're 550 each. Looking at the projection here, it's showing about 1,200 to be there by 2017, 2018. So the question that around that is, this has been one of those things people say, you build a new school and suddenly a portable shows up on it. So I'm just looking to see if we're trying to keep costs down and being able to utilize the portables that are currently on our locations. So that's something that we're looking at, or is it that you build, I'm just tossing that out. Does that make sense?
It does. So,
yeah, and I think you're right. I think we do have to address somewhat we need to address the portable question that keeps coming up, and I don't think portables they're never going to go away because they are a way of accommodating students. But how does it fit into this whole plan?
Well, I think we just need to be clear.
So what we could do is take the 5-minute break. That would give us 5 minutes
Yes,
to
they need to
crunch
have
these
time
numbers and see what we can come up
answer.
with to answer the question that you're posing.
I think there's one thing to consider when we're doing our planning 8 years in advance, and then staying within budget. That is part of the issue. So if we change from the 8-year to a 4-year, it will get us closer to building the schools with more current enrollment projections.
Right. I'm just saying if the current projection shows to be more than what we're currently building for, then it's clear that we just need to be honest with that and look at what the portables mean around that.
5 minutes, 10:10. Do we have an answer on portables, or are we moving to the next step?
It looks like we're very close to
Almost
having
close.
a response on that.
What'd you say?
The response to the question that Siri posed before the break about what will, how much capacity would this approach get us, and what would that do to our reliance on portables?
So
That's
they're
what
still working on
Barbara's
those
looking at
numbers.
right now.
In the meantime, I actually have a related question, and that is moving a portable that already exists is not a free thing. How much is that per portable just to move them?
Barbara and Janine will know the direct, exact number on this, but I think it's
Moving
around
a portable?
$200,000 to move a portable from one site to another.
250? 200.
It's like 6 figures is
So,
all I care.
so 300 is a brand new, right?
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Approximately?
You can't shout.
My point is that even if we do build new capacity, it's very unlikely that any portables are moving because that's expensive.
It's not whether or not they get moved, because often the schools like having them there as extra class space, because that's always appreciated for things. And so, but it's, are we relying upon them for our student enrollment?
Right.
And if they are relied upon, then that needs to be the point.
But we do move them when we need to.
Yes, we
And we surplus them when we need to.
But at one time, it was only $50,000 to move. Just like everything else, it's gone up. Yes, it does, and it didn't then. Well, now it's all the permitting, and it's fire lanes and fire hydrants and the
Fire
portables.
separation?
All that stuff that didn't used to, you could put them right next to one another in the past, now you can't. Okay. While they're coming up with that answer, maybe we just can lay out what the next steps will be for the board in that, one, the first decision we have to make as a board is there going to be a rerun of the bond? Yes or no? And then when? And then after that, if the answer is yes, then when? And if the answer, depending on when is, the options are April 22nd, there's a primary in August, there's a November general election. State law says we can only run it twice within a calendar year. So.
Are we starting this discussion?
No, I'm just laying out the
So how are we going to do the
decisions.
discussion?
So we need to make a decision if we're going to do a bond again or not, and then when and what. Those are the three things
So I move that we
need to
do a bond again, is that what I need to do?
Yes.
Make a motion? I make a motion, I mean, that won't be the actual decision, but I do think we need to do the bond again this year.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second that that we run a bond measure again this year. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we have that decision.
That one.
Yeah, the tough ones are coming. The timing.
That's still terrifying.
Yes,
Mike, but-
timing and what? So we can decide on what and then timing, or do you want to do, would that be the better way to go? Or do you want to do a timing and then?
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that you
Okay.
can discuss. I'm going to move that we do a 4-year bond, that we go ahead and take this option, whatever number, 2, to do a 4-year bond. I'm not saying I'm 100% with it, I just think we need a motion on the table.
May I just, one point of clarification? So a couple of different resolutions have been prepared, and so we should probably in the motion have you reference which resolution you're putting forward for discussion.
Well, we can't do that one unless we pick the date, because these have dates
Because
on
these
them.
all have the dates, okay? Okay.
I was just moving discussions, and
Gotcha.
also because I read them online, it's hard for me to lay them out.
Right. So I think we can decide, once we decide what and when, then we can adopt the resolution. Does that make more sense? Because otherwise, we have to adopt this resolution on the date, which is April, unless we want to change the date later.
If you are going to do a measure other than April, we would need to prepare different resolutions. And you would have, of course, additional time to approve those.
That's right. Okay. So then it's the,
So let's leave the time independently.
Getting that on the table for discussion.
right.
is
And if we
the-
decide that we
Wanna get
don't
the
want to do
time
it in
on the
April,
table first?
then it will be at a later, we will
Discuss it
make
later.
other
and
changes.
Other
Okay.
resolutions would be prepared.
So I'll withdraw my other motion, and we'll discuss time first.
No, I think what you want to do then is if you would want to put Resolution 2178, because it's what has to be decided tonight. If we were not to go with an April decision, we could then say at a later date, it'll be on an agenda, and we'll have a new resolution to deal with, even if it's for the same dollar amount.
Give me a page number, will you?
Well, I don't know, it's this, right?
It's on
There's
the-
the number.
I know, I'm still scrolling through.
Okay.
2178, you said?
Yes, 2178.
And this would be for the half,
Right.
basically?
On April
On
20.
April 22nd. Okay, I'm going to move adoption of resolution number 2178.
Okay, for getting it on the table for discussion. Does someone want to second that?
I will second that.
Okay, motion and second, now we're open for discussion.
And I
We're
have
we're now
series-
out, now the motion is, this resolution is on, up for discussion. So the discussion is around the amount and the date.
As part of discussion, do we want Janine to
Yeah,
now
finish
answer
up
the
the portable
question
questions.
posed? Okay.
Yep.
So again, this is looking at it from a district-wide basis, because individual schools and boundary decisions and all of that would affect individual schools' need. But if you look at it globally, the proposal would reduce the reliance on portables at elementary by 56%, at middle schools by 73%, and we could eliminate reliance on portables at high schools through the proposal.
For the, all four, the 8 years worth of proposals?
The 4 years, that was just looking at the first 4
The
years.
first 4 years, we could reduce,
Reliance on portables at high schools, reduce reliance at middle schools by 73%, and reduce it at elementary schools by 56%.
And 100% at high school?
Mm-hmm. That's given the current standard of service, not counting class size reductions.
And including what the pull-off would be into the different choice school options.
Well, this is globally district-wide, so that
Right,
doesn't
okay.
matter. This is just a holistic look at total high school capacity. So
So
just
those
a quick
projects
question,
would
though.
provide enough permanent capacity to
Right.
reduce the reliance on portable capacity by the percentages at each level district-wide that you just stated.
Correct.
One quick question. With the STEM school, or the STEM-like school on the Juanita campus, I'm assuming it would be phased in similarly to how it was phased in out there. So it would be a while before 600 would be available. It would slowly move in.
Yeah, if we phased it in the same way in terms of enrollment, first year, you would have 9th and 10th graders. I'm thinking now because that
You
was
did
the
9,
year of
10.
configuration, which is why we were able to do 9 and 10 in the
So you
first
might
year.
only do 9.
So we do 9, then 10.
So it would
Yeah.
take 4 years before you'd have full impact
fully
of that
subscribed.
school.
So the number that I gave you is looking at globally based on the projects that we're doing. So it doesn't, it didn't take into account the actual individual schools like that, the draw of the STEM, but it's just globally district-wide capacity, reliance on portables. and then now current projections as compared to the capacity that we'd have with the projects in the first 4 years.
And I think that with the elementary only being with a 56%, I think people have to remember that the 2, 3 elementaries are not, there's still other areas that are going to begin to be tight, not necessarily overflowing, and so the portable use for those buildings would still be of a necessity. Okay, discussion. Somebody would like to?
We're discussing 2178.
Correct, 2178, putting a bond for $404 million on the April 22nd, 2014 ballot, and this is for the construction and equipment for 3 elementary schools, a new middle school or equivalent space, a West Side STEM school, STEM focus school, and an addition at Lake Washington High School, a rebuild of Juanita High School with equipping it, and capital planning for additional projects. That's what the $404 million would be for.
So the first issue to be discussed would be timing. And the question is, we've got 3 election cycles to choose from, April, August, or the general election in November. August is a terrible time to try and get education voters out because they have children and tend to be on vacation. It actually becomes hard not so much to hit the 60%, but hard to hit the 40% turnout relative to the last general election for it to even matter. So August is right out. The question is November at all preferable to April? I mean, there are several compelling arguments, but to me, if we're going to succeed this year, the net cost of delaying till November is on the order of $21 million in downstream construction costs, if I understood that correctly.
That is correct, if we're going to stay to the original timeline.
I am not enthused about spending $21,000 to take things back off of the shelf. $21 million to $21,000. Wouldn't that be nice?
That was a
$21 million
difference.
to take it back off the shelf. So any other enthusiasts for going for November?
You said that earlier, though, it was at $10 million to $21 million.
I'm going to ask Janine, just so there's no confusion here, if we could potentially even, you could reference the slide from the work session that shows, do you know the slide I'm talking about, that talks about the construction phasing, and so we get the numbers exactly right, so there's no confusion.
And while Janine's doing that, just to FYI the board, is that there will be a King County measure on the April 22nd ballot. King County measure is their saving metro transportation, so it is, I may have all the detail wrong, so don't hold me to it, but I know it's to increase the car tab to $60, and it's an increase in sales tax, small increase, and the money is to be used for metro, and the money is to be used also for road projects in the county, so they're going to do both. I just want folks to know that that's going to be on the ballot as well, as you begin your process of thinking of which ballot you want to put this against.
Do we have any information that says whether that's a good, bad thing, or indifferent? Obviously, then we don't have the whole cost of the ballot. That part's kind of good.
Right. That's right. The ballot would be shared. Costs for the actual ballot would come from a combination of them and us, rather than us footing the whole bill.
So I don't know if Janine's got it up, but I found the work session from last week. It's slide 18 of the February 24th work session on post-bond planning. The April costs, net costs of moving conceptual design and stuff, staggering that, is about $3 million. That's unavoidable. The net costs of a rerun in November, $21 million. The differential there of $18 million is enough for me to say that as a steward of public finances, I want to run it in April rather than wait till November.
And just to clarify, those are not...
That's off the $75 million.
Those are not costs. Those are costs that are part of staying on track. So they're not costs that would just be spent and not spent if you delayed, right? So what we looked at was, in order to stay on schedule to meet the space needs, we'd need to invest this much to stay on schedule. Those costs would eventually be needed if you delayed as well. So it's not a comparison of spending $21 additional million. It's investing $21 million so to stay on schedule, such that then if we didn't pass the bond, you've essentially made a $21 million investment for the, with the hope that the bond passes. If it doesn't, then we would start racking up additional costs for shelving the projects, bringing them back up, those kinds of things.
So we're not really talking about an extra $18 million project.
Right.
We're talking about the delay, basically just spending the money up front. I was one of the biggest proponents for pushing for an April vote. I thought we had some good momentum. I thought we had some good campaign. I thought we had some good work. What concerns me is the time needed for a good educational campaign that informs an electorate that is very set. There is a certain segment that you're not going to be able to blow out, but it's that middle area you've got to sway. And I've been in communications for 30 years, and I'll tell you, an 8-week campaign ain't easy. And you're talking about trying to explain people to change a mindset that they've already gotten into. 8 weeks is a very, and hell, we're actually talking 6 to 7 weeks, really.
Yeah.
That's a major concern to me, of being able to effectively to get the messaging that we need out and reach the publics, and reach some public that we didn't actually reach before. Reach more of our seniors. Reach more of our people that don't have skin in the game, if you will. But to reach out to those neighbors and adopt neighbors to get them to go out and vote as well.
And I guess I'm going to, knowing how long it took to ramp up the enthusiasm and the participation that we have from our community right now, which was overall a 2-year process, and in the last 6 months really been the active work. If we wait till November, we have to start that all over again, because you've got a whole new set of leadership in PTA and the local units, and it would just be there would be an additional component to the education of what you speak. We would have to do some extra work around the work that helped us this time, if that made any sense at all.
Well, it does, but my concern is too that we burned out a lot of people. I mean, there was a lot of people that worked themselves to the frazzle point, and I'm concerned that they have the capacity, the bandwidth to keep on going for another 7 to 8 weeks.
Well, you have,
I'm not sure they'll come back in 6 months.
But if we're already up to here, and we only have to get to here, and we're not going to be on the back of the ballot, so, yeah, there's pros and cons with any decision we make. Sure. But the issue for a November ballot, before I was elected to the board, I didn't understand, why don't schools just run their ballots in November? And then I got on the board and started learning a whole lot about why we don't run things in November. Will we still have the issue of validation? Okay, so but that's not going to be the issue. The issue is the funding cycle and the competition and getting people's attention.
Can I just speak to the validation issue? The requirement to validate doesn't change depending on what election you run it in, and we're still working off the last November election, so the requirements are still the same. What we have found since we went to all mail-in ballots, we have not run into a validation issue. So we were substantially below. Barbara maybe remembers the number, she's looking for the number, but I mean, we were substantially above the required amount for validation, and we have been every election since we went to all mail-in. So it hasn't been an issue like it used to be when we had
But if we did a November election, wouldn't that set us up for a validation issue in the future because so many more people vote in the November election?
The validation isn't based on when you run your measure, it's based on the November election.
Oh, it's
the
already,
last
okay.
general election voters in it. Doesn't matter who's on the ballot.
Okay, so I guess my other concern with waiting to November is losing the momentum, putting us 6 more months out when our housing needs are so high. So I guess it's a matter of
critical.
Can we meet the concern of the 8-week window?
My other concern is the fact that you have that transportation ballot on April. And that's going to be bloody, I think.
Yeah, but there's also going to be an Iman in November measure, and there's going to be the, I think the gun resolution, isn't that on the November? So, I mean, either way you look at it, you're going to have hot buttons to the public, I think, as you look at it. I think the other thing, too, is one of the gentlemen who spoke tonight, I'm not saying that the no people will change their mind, but some people who might have voted no this time based on size may look at a smaller ballot or smaller dollar amount, and maybe that would have, who have traditionally supported schools. I mean, we heard the gentleman tonight who said he voted no this time and what the things were. I don't know if this would change his mind or not. It might not, but it might, some of the no votes, it might not. But again, it's closer to when they just voted, so some of that information is fresh rather than the November, because it's really like doing a brand new if we go to November. But I see the pros and cons. I've gone back and forth in my head too.
None of these proposals that we've been considering address some of the issues that people have raised in terms of the amount of money we spend on schools. But considering the amount of work that has been done prior to developing this proposal, the first proposal, I don't know that we should go back and revisit that issue. We've got our ed spec. We are not building the most expensive on an area cost allowance schools in the state. We've worked it out based on what we consider our community needs and the educational facility and the longevity, putting us in a position to be able to actually use these buildings for a considerably long period of time. So that being said, if we're not changing that, I'm not sure there's
a lot of the
other arguments that we can meet at this point.
So can we just get back to the date?
Right.
In November, the fundamental problem is information overload. When you've got propositions, when you've got lots of candidates, there's a ton to be read. By the time you get tired of reading, people start voting no. That is why you don't run in a general election for an issue like this that requires people to actually pay attention. The knee-jerk reaction is to vote no on anything that has a dollar sign in front of it, and then vote for your congressman.
And we have data behind that?
And so that's the whole thing. If we're not going to run it in November, we should run it next February if we're not going to run it in March, in April. It's just there. If you look across the state, whether it's common wisdom or not, nobody in their right mind puts school bonds and levies in general elections.
There's going to be some pressure from our legislators to move that way, but it's not yet.
I mean, I would agree that I have some of the very similar concerns of the short time frame that occurs in this component, because there are still some questions that haven't been answered. I think the November general election does have those issues. It does provide opportunity to work on clear messaging, and the opportunity that was one piece that we have heard, is that some of the messaging was confused or was not clear for the electorate in regards to modernization versus growth in different components. I think the split makes that a little clearer and can put it out clearer. I do think probably Jane Wither said it best in sort of her expression of don't rush into something. So the concern I have would be we don't have the appropriate time in which to do the educational component that needs to be done to ensure that we do meet our growth capacities that are required. Now, whether that would happen in a general election, it requires a whole other set of things that have to get addressed. So it is a pro and con on both sides.
If we move to the April date, or if we go for the April date, then I would really, advise everyone that we need a very sharp 1 or 2 messages. We don't need a blanket of campaign. So it has to be a very sharp message to those, to the overcrowding and the overcapacity and the continued growth of this community, this school district.
And from the school district perspective, that's absolutely correct. Unfortunately, you can't call that a campaign. It's an informational message. We have to say, look, we've got 27 buildings, 20 of them are already over capacity, and the other 7 will be in 18 months.
Campaign versus the informational messages is the same thing. You spell it
You
differently.
just can't say that when you're the PDC. That's the sad part. And so...
Just if it helps the discussion at all, I think from the district perspective, regardless of the time frame that the board determines, we will ensure that we do a informational campaign and get the clear messaging. So I'm just sharing my commitment, our commitment, that regardless of the decision of the board, we will make sure that we have a clear, concise informational campaign for the measure should you move forward with the April timeline.
I'm going to throw out another thought in that I really believe that this is a crisis mode decision, in that the need for making sure we have the knowledge, that we have the resources to address the growth that's coming. I don't think we can wait and delay it. And one of the things I worry about in the delay, does that then water down the message, how important making this decision and knowing we have facilities that we can have funds to build, will that change the further out you push it? So that's another thought that has been addressed to me, is that does that change that messaging? If you don't say, you know, we're coming back this quickly because we really need these to happen, so we know where we're putting kids, so we don't have to go to the list of things that people are not going to be happy about that may, unfortunately, are a reality if you don't have space. So that's just another thought.
If we're prepared to have our informational campaign focus on the crisis of overcrowding and the crisis of the immediate need, then I move the question that we have the ballot in April, and we adopt this resolution 2178.
And the thing too is that with this, the Juanita High School piece of this is also a growth piece. It's not. If it had not been part of the growth remedy, it would have been, much to my chagrin, it would probably have moved with all the others that were in the list of the modernization and remodeling, or whatever is going to happen. It would have been moved because it wouldn't have been part of the growth. This is where it is because of the growth. Again, reminding people there's growth in Kirkland to happen.
I'm worried you may have just talked through this all. Mark, could you say what you just said again?
Yeah, we can't always. I can't always hear you.
Move the question.
Okay, who wants
and
to
we
take the
move
vote?
it to a vote at this point. I think we've covered all the bases. I think we've covered all the points. I have reservations, but I also have reservations about waiting also.
Yeah.
But if we have a very clear, concise message that doesn't cover the gamut from alpha to omega, that goes for one bullet point, one target, I'm for it then.
Okay.
So we move the question.
That's what I was hoping.
And I'm fine with that, but I really want to make sure every board member's had a chance to say what their piece. This is an important decision.
I have reservations with both, so I also have possibilities that each could work. I believe that the way in which we structure that educational piece is going to be key, and how it's done, and that we're clear with the voters.
And I think we need to not get mired down in the second half piece.
It definitely has to be separated and make it clear that that is a need that will be addressed. I think we have to be clear in dealing with, this is dealing with some immediate growth things. It will not deal with all portables that you see everywhere. I think that's an important message. That's key that people do understand. It doesn't resolve that completely. Part of that's from a fiscal. The one piece I think that has to be addressed as that cost component a bit. Why do we say what we say about the cost for an elementary school? How does that compare? It's hard to compare elementary schools because they're all different sizes, lots depends. So it makes it very complicated. But some idea there and being clear on that, I think would be important. And, yeah.
Nothing more. Chris, do you have anything more to add?
My sole concern with the phrasing, I'm terrified, but at the same time, I do believe this is a crisis. We've got to put the kids somewhere. And I think our best chance of pulling it off is a tight message, as Mark is very right to point out. We need to hone in on, look, we hear you. That was a lot of money to ask for. You weren't ready to go for that much. Here's the absolute bare minimum we need right now, and we'll come back in 4 years and talk about the second half of it. That's a very simple message. I believe it's communicable. The piece that is, the only piece that I'm worried about in the phrasing of the actual, what's in front of us, it doesn't break out on a line item what each of those buildings costs. $404 million that includes a line item that says capital planning and doesn't say how much that is. Capital planning better be 3% of the total budget. It should be, $380 million with $40 million for this elementary, $40 million for this elementary, just so that people can see what these buildings actually cost.
I don't think you can put it in here, right? This is dictated by the...
Well, we're allowed to put $404 million.
But
I don't think we're not
can...
allowed to put in a breakdown of what that is. That would be
because I don't know if you can guarantee that.
Only a politician
Go ahead,
would do
let
that.
you explain that.
We included all of that information in the informational campaign for the district in the last measure, so it wasn't broken out in each project cost, but we have a bond detail. It talks about the size, the square footage, all of that. So we certainly would plan to do that. The ballot measure itself is limited to 100 words. So there is no way you can, we're
absolutely.
already at 100 words right
100
now.
words is impossible. Right. I'm just talking about the material following it. Because I imagine that the measure winds up in the voter pamphlet.
This resolution
No,
part?
it does not. Just the ballot proposition is what is in the voter's pamphlet. And
They did not include in this particular voter's pamphlet. Sometimes when you get, the fat one from the state or whatever, they put all the resolution pieces, the detail. They did not include this in this one because I'm sure it was cost. And they included, because in our ballots, remember they just gave you a one-pager that was folded in half that had 4 sides.
So if it's not going to be in the material that comes out, then I'm not worried about it. But it is something that I think is crucial for our informational campaign.
And I don't know if that's something that could be recommended to whoever would write a pro statement. Could they put more detail about cost to address your issue? Because that was a criticism about the pro statement. So that could be more lined out in there. And probably they would read that more than they would read resolutions where it says whereas, 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 whereas. Sorry.
So with that, Siri, did you have anything else? I'm done.
Any others? Are we ready for the vote? One of the toughest ones we've made in a long time. Okay. We have before us a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2178, which is to put a bond measure on the April 22nd, 2014 ballot for $404 million. Did correct that. And I won't go through the specifics that I did before, but for the buildings that I mentioned before when I read the original motion. So I will ask all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Whew. Almost like giving birth to a baby. Some detail about the election steps ahead, dates. This is due to the county then by Friday. And we have until the 10th. We are going to be part of the voters pamphlet, so putting something in the voters pamphlet. So pro and con statements are due to the county by the 10th, so 3 days later. And we have a committee that we will ask for the pros, if they will do a pro statement. We did have con statements, and we could ask again, but again, we're in a tight timeline since we're meeting today and it's next Monday. So we can post on the web asking for people to submit if they would like to be part of the con statement. We certainly could contact the 2 people who wrote last time and ask them if they would like to do it again and be included in that group. And then we will have to verify when that decision by the board needs to be made. Do we need to, to accept the people who have submitted their names? I mean, I don't know why we have. I don't know why, because they could just give it to King County, and King County will take them, because that's what they did last time. So I'm not quite sure. So we'll find that out. If we have to have a meeting of a minimum of 3 board members before the 10th, we'll get back. But at least we will advertise so that we would be sure if people would like to submit their names to be considered that they would. And we will then get information out pretty quickly to the public that this is the plan of the board, so that we can go from that.
Our next step will be to immediately develop a plan and timeline around the informational campaign.
Right, yes. And just the importance of the very clear, very simple. I think I think board members were pretty direct in comments that you all heard of things that should be done and could be done, and move forward from there. So I do have an agenda here somewhere. Okay, anything from the legislative update? We're back.
No, we'll be quick and fast. There's a few things. Thank you to Barb Martin for going down and testifying. The other is 24 credit is still a hot topic that's going on. The shift for us, I mean, for the most part, we are 1 credit in science, I think, is the difference between our graduation requirements and that 24 credits for the most part, and a fine arts.
So we're 22 credit requirement. To meet the 24, we would add a science and add a fine arts.
And the fine arts, right. It would be great to be able to get some information as to if there's any cost associated with our having to go to that 24 credit and what that means, because that's a possibility then to be able to talk to our legislators around that issue. To ensure that they recognize it's not a non-cost, because the other piece that's coming out in a budget from the Senate, who knows what's going to do, is decreasing your science lab size at the high school levels, which could be an impact if you then have to have 2 lab sciences in your high school year, and we don't have the labs for them. So it'd be great to get that information at some point so that we can have that in which to deal with our legislators.
How do you do that with remodeling?
And they're still dealing with McCleary and funding,
Yes.
and different things and how it's going to go. It's now, they're both out of the House and Senate. They're now negotiating what's going to happen. The governor's put his out. They're looking at closing tax loopholes, various different things. Still remains to be seen.
And I just happened to run into Larry Springer yesterday at Fred Meyer shopping, and he just mentioned the capital bill that's coming out of the House to deal with the all-day kindergarten reduced class size in K-3, as he said. And he mentioned that our district alone would need another
123 or 128 classrooms
to accommodate that, in addition to what we're already talking about. I know North Shore would be another 80, he said, so that's another, and obviously the state realizes that in order to do that, schools do need capacity, so they're looking at a capital piece for that.
That's it. More later.
Okay. Anything else from the board?
The State Board of Ed meeting, you were going to mention that, Siri.
There is the opportunity. The State Board of Education is meeting down at the Puget Sound ESD Tuesday and Wednesday, and then there's an option to go meet with the State Board of Education and have the opportunity just to talk to them at 5:15 on Wednesday. I'd have to pull it up. I believe it's this Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's this one.
Actually, they're meeting in Renton Tuesday and Wednesday?
Yeah.
And there's public comment time, but it's during the day, so they're having this evening meeting to accommodate board members. You need to find the email
I'll
Siri
send it to
sent
you.
us.
And, I mean, the key thing that the State Board of Education is working with, that's the 24 credits, where that come from, the accountability component, that's coming from them. So anything that we have in those areas to discuss.
Just want to thank PTSA for a very wonderful Founder's Day on Friday. They did an absolutely great job, and congratulations. Barbara received a lifetime membership for PTA. Those are rare and far between. I think you're like the third in the district, so, and much deserved. Just a very wonderful program. And the microphones worked the whole time. First time in 10 years. It was great. So, okay, before we adjourn, our next meeting is on March 17th at 5:30. It is, again, one of our brief meetings with absolutely, just business from consent. Work session will begin at 7 p.m., and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.